Chapter 291, The Prison Entrance. It was currently the peak period for the game, so over 4,000 members of the 10 Guild Alliance were online. At Dusky Cloud's command, all these 10 guilds were stirred into a frenzy as they began searching for Silver Moon's hiding place. Locate, hunt, and kill the target. The 10 Guild Alliance was skilled at doing this sort of activities. In fact, it was not even an issue for them that Y City's players were covering their faces. As the organization that trains supreme in Y City, no player at there would refuse to remove the cloth covering his or her face upon the 10 Guild Alliance's request. However, these 4,000 players' hot-blooded search simmered down when they realized that Silver Moon was not even online. Given how shrewd Silver Moon was, he knew that the best course of action for him was to not reveal himself in Y City. He had already decided to remain offline while the expedition was staying in the city. He did not even set his character to respawn in Y City upon death. It was better to err on the side of caution. After all, Silver Moon knew that being spawn-camped was the only fate awaiting him if his enemies caught sight of him, so he would rather return to Yunjuan City upon his death than to fall into the vicious cycle of dying and respawning. His in-game life would be as good as over if that really happened. Those that were inside the tavern came to this disappointing realization as they were about to move out following Dusky Cloud's command. Motherfucker. That bastard is still as cunning as ever. Those who had clashed with him before were loudly cursing Silver Moon. They even went as far as to bring up his past wretched actions, leaving Gufei, Brother Assist, War Without Wounds, and Royal God Call horrified. Seems like Silver Moon has led quite the legendary life, Brother Assist sighed. Yeah. Still, his legend looks to be about to come to an end, Royal God Call remarked. Dusky Cloud continued relaying instructions from the tavern, assigning the 10 Guild Alliance's members to stake at the 7 job classes safe zones for any knight that was coming online. He especially emphasized on the need for all those knights to remove the pieces of cloth covering their faces. At the sight of the 10 Guild Alliance's emblem, the players of Y City could only swallow their dissent and cooperate with these men. Anyone who chose to resist, honestly, anyone who resisted would be killed off, whether that person was Silver Moon or just a regular civilian. There was just no way for Silver Moon to escape now. HMPH. At most, you'll be able to kill him once, young Master Han interjected when he saw Gufei and the rest's discussion about it on the mercenary channel. Why do you say that? Royal God Call asked. Just the fact that Silver Moon isn't online at this peak hour clearly shows his intention to stay hidden. Since he knows the danger waiting for him, he will certainly not set his character to respawn in Y City, so if he gets killed this time, his character will probably be sent back to Yunjuan City. Get it? Young Master Han explained. That makes sense. They agreed to this reasoning and quickly passed it over to Dusky Cloud. Dusky Cloud also thought that it was logical. Killing Silver Moon just once was simply not enough to satisfy his appetite for revenge, especially after he had mobilized his force in such a grand scale. Old Cloud, why don't we assign a few brothers to block the Knights barracks in Yunjuan City as well? Someone suggested. Dusky Cloud was rather hesitant to do that. This was because Yunjuan City was not their home ground. Moreover, he didn't know how Silver Moon had progressed or how many friends he had acquired in that city. Gufei and company were unable to provide him much information either, since all they knew was that Silver Moon had a 40-man mercenary group. Besides, it would be foolish to underestimate Silver Moon's capability, given his shrewdness and diplomatic skills. Gufei had come to know of Silver Moon's excellent social skills after spending a few hours squatting in prison with him. What separated Silver Moon from Dusky Cloud was how the latter only befriended players whom he acknowledged or had a similar temperament. Dusky Cloud would never befriend someone like young Master Han. As for Silver Moon, he was hypocritical enough to do just that. Spreading his net wide, he could easily call anyone a comrade. Even if he was tricking someone, he could easily put on a happy countenance and not reveal his hand until the last moment, making him more difficult to deal with than Dusky Cloud. The positions these two had once held in Y City before were proof enough of this. Were it not for young Master's elite's help, Dusky Cloud and his comrades would likely still be under Silver Moon's foot right now. Dusky Cloud had even fallen into Silver Moon's trap in Yunjuan City before. Thinking about it now, Dusky Cloud felt unsure that he would be able to kill the man even if he sent all 4,000 members of the Alliance over. After much pondering, Dusky Cloud was struck with inspiration and he hurriedly asked Gufei and the others, "What exactly are you guys doing for your mission, anyway?" "We're helping a guild escort something to its destination," Gufei replied. "So you'll head to other cities to carry out the mission?" Dusky Cloud's eyes glinted as he asked this. "Yeah, if I remember correctly, we will be passing through 5 in-game cities," Brother Assist replied. "You can't possibly be thinking." The 5 men trailed off, somewhat guessing Dusky Cloud's intention. Since Silvermoon doesn't dare set his character to revive here in Y City, he'll definitely have to do so in the next city. "We'll attack and take him down there, instead." "He may have many tricks up his sleeves, but he'll be unable to do anything in a city he has never been to before," Dusky Cloud declared. "True." All nodded their heads in agreement. "Great. Select a few of our brothers. We'll join Yunju on City's expedition team on the road and give Silvermoon a run for his money once we reach the next city," Dusky Cloud spiritedly ordered. All those inside the tavern voiced their agreement and earnestly volunteered for this operation. Dusky Cloud swept his gaze through the crowd. "Those brothers who came later shan't compete for a spot in this operation. Let's leave this chance to bully Silvermoon to those who have previously been bullied by him." "That's right." Celestial Pig was the first to stand up. Slapping the table heavily, he resolutely said, "I'll bully him to death." The entire tavern burst into laughter. Celestial Pig's strong response to this suggestion revealed the fact that he had been bullied terribly by Silvermoon in the past. Celestial Pig felt embarrassed at his faux pas and awkwardly returned to his seat. Gufei and the rest did not know how Dusky Cloud would choose his men, but they did watch the people before them plot and arrange their revenge against Silvermoon. "Isn't this a little cruel?" War Without Wounds asked Sword Demon. "What do you think?" Sword Demon asked Royal God Call. "I'm looking forward to it." Royal God Call was looking at Gufei when he said this. "With so many men on their side, I don't think they all need my help." Gufei expressed his dejection. Brother Assist consolingly patted Gufei on his back. "There are other more meaningful things for you to do." "Like what?" Gufei asked. "It's almost 7 p.m. We've got a mission to do." Brother Assist replied. "Aren't we staying here in Y City today?" Gufei asked, nonplussed. "While we won't be resuming our journey today, the mission still has to go on. Have you forgotten? We still haven't seen what item Traversing Four Seas has to escort." "It's because today is the day when we'll retrieve this item in Y City," Brother Assist supplied. "Why don't I know anything about this?" Gufei was very confused. Royal God Call patted Gufei on his back as well. "If you're online more often, you'd know of this as well." Apparently, while 7 p.m. was the official time for all the players involved to gather and perform the Guild Quest's main mission, any information, planning, and such stuff were relayed and discussed as early as the morning. Gufei was never online that early in the day, so it was not surprising for him to be in the dark about all this. The 5 men of Young Master's Elite got up and bid Dusky Cloud farewell. The man made an effort to send them out the door, requesting, "Don't forget to tell your brothers if you see Silvermoon around." After making the arrangements for the plan, Dusky Cloud dispersed his men stationed at the various spawn points to prevent Silvermoon from suspecting that anything was afoot. "Sure thing." The 5 men replied. "Oh, yeah. What's the next city you guys are heading to?" "I'll see if I can make prior preparations for it," Dusky Cloud said. "I think it's Beishi City," Brother Assist replied, adding, "but we're not sure how we will get there." "Okay, thanks a lot," Dusky Cloud said. "Oh, that's right, Old Cloud." Royal God Call suddenly spoke up. "Do you guys happen to have any conflict with Drifting?" "Drifting? The #1 mage?" "Well, we've never even met him before." Dusky Cloud was quite puzzled by Royal God Call's inquiry and he questioningly stared at him. "Ah, that's such a pity." Royal God Call sighed regretfully. "Oh?" Dusky Cloud somewhat figured what Royal God Call was getting at. "Bro, are you the one who has some issues with that twerp?" "Don't worry, just say the word and I'll make sure he won't be leaving Y City." "Now that's what I'm talking about." Royal God Call was elated. "Just get him." Before he could finish her words, Gufei extended an arm and squeezed Royal God Call's neck under his armpits, gagging the latter. He then smiled at Dusky Cloud, This kid here is spouting nonsense, ignore him. That right. This guy enjoys playing pranks a little too much, so don't take him seriously. War Without Wounds added. It was easy for Royal God Call to extricate himself from Goofei's sleeper hold, but War Without Wounds came to take over that hold with his arm. Bye. We're leaving. Brother Assist abruptly said their goodbyes to those in the tavern, and the four men dragged Royal God Call along. War Without Wounds. Let me go, you bastard. Royal God Call struggled with his awl, slowly disappearing from Dusky Cloud's line of sight. Take care. Dusky Cloud returned to his senses and stiffly waved his hand, wiping the sweat off his forehead after. At that moment, most of the players from Yunjuan City were gathered outside Y City's prison entrance. Oathless Sword was standing at the entrance steps, dwarfing the players around him. His face had a solemn expression. He swept his gaze around, and when he judged that almost all of them were present, he began his speech. Everyone, we originally thought that today's job would be a piece of cake. But given how every step of the way since our departure from Yunjuan City has been fraught with hidden danger, I've taken precaution by gathering all of you here. Please get ready to enter combat at any moment. I'm not ruling out such a possibility. When he finished speaking, Youthful Reflection immediately went up the steps and gestured about as if he were an orchestra conductor. He was probably relaying instructions through the guild channel and the party channel that he shared with all the mercenary leaders. Shortly after this, the players separately began to take up positions and prepare to receive an attack from any direction. Oathless Sword sternly surveyed everyone before pulling out two claymores and heading to the guards standing by the prison entrance. He assumed a battle-ready stance as he started speaking to the NPC. Fuck. Oathless Sword cursed after speaking with the NPC. All the players anxiously looked around them for any enemies. God damn it. Oathless Sword cursed again, his expression turning grim as he turned to inform all the players, they want me to pay the money. Screw you. All the players raised their middle fingers at Oathless Sword. So is there a need for us to fight or not? Someone asked aloud. Just be on standby. Don't leave just yet, Oathless Sword replied. The players stayed alert as they vigilantly observed their surroundings. Goofei and the rest of Young Master's elite were also observing the vicinity in a similar fashion. Pedestrians would pass by them from time to time, each of them pausing and examining Goofei from head to toe. Looking around, these pedestrians would hesitate for quite some time before turning to leave. Just what's going on here? Goofei was perplexed. His sharp senses had obviously alerted him to the odd behavior every passerby had when they regarded him. Goofei currently did not have anything covering his face, nor was he holding a sword. His right hand was deep in his pocket, while his left hand was absent-mindedly stroking his jaw. Besides his black, mage robe, he looked similar in every way to the players around him. Thus, he could not think of why he was attracting the attention of those passers-by. The experienced gamers Sword Demon and the rest were the ones who figured out the reason behind this, asking Goofei, how many park points do you have right now? 14 park points. Goofei finally figured out what was going on. Slapping his thigh, he said, see, that's why I say Y City is a truly wonderful place. In the peaceful city of Yunjuan, almost no one would bother about doing bounty mission. Over in Y City where PvPing was the norm, players would prioritize clearing off their park points as soon as they could, which in turn ensured that the bounty assignment hall was often filled with bounty hunters. How great would it be if they could earn a few extra rewards while clearing off their park value? As such, a target with high park value like Goofei was essentially ripe for the picking for these bounty hunters. A person who could earn so much park value, based on the experience of these players from Y City, was usually the main damage dealer or the mage of a party. In such a situation, the party members would either help their teammate clear off his or her park value or carry on their grinding or PvPing. Despite all these, many players with a gambler's mentality were unwilling to let go of such a fat lamb and obtain the bounty mission just to see if there were any opportunities to exploit before acting. When they arrived at the system-supplied coordinates, these bounty hunters disappointingly saw that there was no opportunity for them to exploit to harvest this particularly ripe fruit. They had already considered the possibility of the mage not being alone with such a high park value, yet they had never expected him to have so many comrades. The entrance of the prison was crowded with players. With such a large bunch of players present, if not someone from the 10 Guild Alliance, Who else would the target be? All the bounty hunters came to this conclusion. Walking near their target and greedily eyeing him, these men still did not dare to eat such a tasty morsel before this 1,000-man army. Say, I don't think anything is gonna happen here, so I'll go take a look elsewhere, Gu Fei said. The other 5 men of young master's elite exchanged furtive glances. How could they not tell what Gu Fei was thinking? Evidently, he had realized that those people were after his bounty mission but did not dare to make a move on him once they saw the many players with him. Thus, Gu Fei was taking the initiative to provide these bounty hunters a chance to attack him by separating himself from the others. Gu Fei was not about to discuss this matter with them and simply sprinted away from the location after informing them. TSK. The 5 men could only shake their heads. How depraved. War without wounds sighed. He's a walking disaster, Royal God Call agreed. We should stick a sign on him, saying, danger, stay away. Brother Assist commented. I really pity those people who are just hoping to clear off their park points. Won't they lose 2 levels if they've got park points on them? It's 2 levels only if their park value is below 10 points. He's just too depraved. These men were now praying for those players who were about to fall victim to Gu Fei's sword. Gu Fei excitedly left his mercenary group, arriving at a place where no one would mistake him for someone who had backup and assumed his lackadaisical stance earlier. Gu Fei could already feel someone standing behind him in less than a minute. He happily pulled out his sword and turned around, only to freeze on the spot. Why is it you? I got bored, so I followed you when I saw you skulking away. Why are you posing like that in this secluded area, anyway? The person who had followed Gu Fei was Svelte Dancer. This former PvP partner in the Guild vs Guild tournament was similar to Gu Fei in that she could also not sit still for long, especially when they had to listen to the rigorous battle plans being discussed. Waiting by the prison entrance had already left Svelte Dancer feeling impatient. She had been looking around in her boredom when she spotted Gu Fei dashing away. Svelte Dancer decided to follow him, yet she saw Gu Fei just foolishly standing there, causing her to feel disappointed. Me? I am. Gu Fei's answer was interrupted by an arrow flying toward him. When the archer saw that his target was just a lone mage, he strongly felt that he had lucked out and promptly fired off that one arrow toward Gu Fei. Gu Fei dodged the arrow by turning his body to the side. He followed the arrow's flight path back to its origin but saw that Svelte Dancer was already sprinting over in Fleetfoot mode. Damn! Gu Fei was aggrieved. Since the archer was quite a distance away, there was no way Gu Fei could reach him before the speedster Svelte Dancer even if he used Blink. It seemed that this kill would be snatched by Svelte Dancer from him. The archer noticed that Gu Fei and the woman darting toward him were acquainted. While he was taken aback that a thief was taking the initiative to attack him, he did not really care much for it at first. Female players were usually rather limited skill-wise. After all, the archer was about to begin kiting her when he realized that only a few meters of distance were separating them. How can she be this fast? He exclaimed. With Svelte Dancer appearing right before him, the man turned around to flee. This move of his was a fatal mistake against a thief, though, as he had basically presented his unprotected back to the thief, allowing Svelte Dancer to unleash a skill without changing her position. Svelte Dancer executed backstab in one swift motion, bringing silence back to the world. Hey, why did this guy want to? Svelte Dancer turned to ask Gu Fei as to why an archer was targeting him, but she instead saw Gu Fei engaging a thief in combat. Saying that the two were fighting was an exaggeration. By the time Svelte Dancer fully turned around, the trailing flames from Gu Fei's sword had already burned the thief to crisp. Ah! Svelte Dancer was just about to ask the question again when someone's voice came from down the street. The target's over here. Quick! 4 men now appeared from the end of this street corner and rushed straight toward Gu Fei once they caught sight of him. Someone among them shouted, "You should begin the fight." This person was evidently the one who had picked up the bounty mission, and the others were just there to help their friend suppress the target. Svelte Dancer was a step quicker than them, though. Rushing forward to block their advancement, her dagger plunged into the person who had just yelled. The man did not even manage to react before white light enveloped him, only realizing that the beautiful woman before him had stabbed him when he disappeared. The other 3 men felt shocked. But with their friend's death, they no longer had a reason to do this bounty mission, so they attempted to flee, Yet Svelte Dancer do not allow them to do so. Since the female thief was boldly chasing after them, the three men gave up on fleeing and prepared themselves for a fight. Instead, Svelte Dancer took 2 steps backward and disappeared right before the men's eyes. It's stealth. Watch out! These experienced PvPers promptly faced their backs against one another, forming a triangle to prevent Svelte Dancer from using backstab on them. Unfortunately for them, that was not Svelte Dancer's fighting style. She was normally too lazy to use stealth, but since she had recently acquired the Shadow Walk skill, she decided to test it out in this PvP setting. No matter how experienced these players were at PvPing, none of them had encountered this skill before. Someone received a stab to his front, but when no one appeared with that strike, he became extremely baffled. Svelte Dancer's second stab finished off the man before he could even catch a glimpse of his assailant. The other 2 men suffered a similar fate. Svelte Dancer executed bludgeon to the left and backstab to the right before revealing herself and ending their lives once and for all. The experiment was now complete and the results were in. She muttered to herself, "It's pretty op, but it drains my mana quickly." Shadow Walk consumed 7% of her total mana every second. This meant that she could only use the skill for a maximum of 14 seconds. In that 14 seconds, any additional skill she unleashed would further deplete her mana. Hence, while this skill could theoretically last for 14 seconds, this fight had shown that it would be much less than that. Svelte Dancer had activated Fleetfoot prior to the fight, so her mana was already slightly diminished before she even performed that first backstab. As such, that experiment of hers did not even last for 10 seconds. Svelte Dancer's final bludgeon and backstab on the 2 enemies had caused her to use up all her mana. She took out a piece of fruit to replenish her mana and casually glanced over to Goofy to ask her question from before. Instead, "Why are there still some more?" Svelte Dancer exclaimed. Goofy was taking on a warrior at the moment. Over by the prison entrance, the finely attuned ears of the old and young degenerates, War Without Wounds and Royal God Call, pricked up, and the 2 exchanged glances. "Did you hear that?" Brother Assist furrowed his brows. "I think I heard that, too. That's a woman's squeal." "Yeah, and it's in the direction Miles has run off to. What is he doing there?" War Without Wounds' expression changed ever so slightly. "He is not so cruel as to strike a woman, right?" All turned their gazes at him and answered in unison, "He is." "Let's go take a look, then." These men were actually pretty bored hanging around the prison entrance as well, so they quickly turn around to head over to Goofy's location. Chapter 292, Run Goofy. Run. The members of Young Masters Elite ran toward the origin of the exclamation. When the Amethyst Rebirth ladies discovered that Svelte Dancer was missing, they rushed over as well upon recognizing her squeal. These 2 groups rushed over from 2 different directions and ended up seeing a black figure and a red figure run past them. There were too many people, far beyond the number Goofy had expected. Goofy felt that he might have made a huge mistake. The player count had increased tremendously ever since Parallel Worlds' official release. Plenty of players would surely have park value on them considering the prevailing atmosphere in Y City, and each of them would be hoping to clear it fast, so it was a given that many of them would be gutsy enough to pick up Goofy's lucrative bounty mission that was worth 14 park points. Svelte Dancer's killing spree quickly accumulated her park value, and she became the second most wanted fugitive in Y City following Goofy's, acquiring herself quite a lot of bounty hunters as well. Given how their location was right next to Y City's prison, which was conveniently placed close to the bounty assignment hall, plenty of bounty hunters happily rushed toward the 2. Before long, Goofy and Svelte Dancer started experiencing immense pressure from the combined force of their bounty hunters. Svelte Dancer's mana was thoroughly depleted by her test of the Shadow Walk skill, yet another assault was already upon her before she could finish replenishing it. Goofy had it much worse, as he did not even get the chance to munch on a piece of fruit after using up all his mana. In fact, Goofy's situation was more perilous as well. With his higher park value than Svelte Dancer's, more players were aiming for him. Svelte Dancer was decked out in top-grade equipment as well, so she was still considerably powerful despite her depleted mana. This was in stark contrast of Goofy. He was considered as a very peculiar mage, yet the fact remained that he was still restrained by the limitations of being one without mana. the damage he could deal was insignificant. Gufei could rely on his skill as a fighter, and Svelte Dancer could rely on her superior equipment if there were only few enemies. However, Y City's bounty assignment hall currently resembled a base that kept spitting out soldiers, with Gufei and Svelte Dancer acting like a rally point for players to gather. At a glance, these players seemed to be forming a line to take shots at the two. Hey! Even the unrestrained Svelte Dancer could not help but worry over their current situation and called Gufei's attention as they fought. "We can't continue like this, there are just too many of them." Gufei nodded his head gravely. Although he enjoyed fighting with many players, Gufei had no intention to die because of that pleasure. Combat was similar to a competitive sport, where its greatest charm lay in victory. Gufei might enjoy PvP, but he also needed the satisfaction brought by winning the fight. In fact, what he relished about fighting was the process of him steadily attaining victory. Was there even anyone out there who would enjoy fighting if he or she could not achieve victory? Having determined that they did not stand a chance of becoming victorious in their situation, the two exchanged looks and fled in unison. Young Masters Elite and Amethyst Rebirth happened to reach their location at this time and saw this embarrassing scene of the two fleeing with Y City's dedicated PvPers hot on their heels. Svelte Dancer's movement speed was astoundingly fast despite not activating Fleetfoot, so no one could catch up to her. As for Gufei, although he had an all-agility build that was further improved by the agility granted by his Moonlit Nightfalls, Bandit Leader's Ring, and Eddie's emblem, as well as the additional movement speed from Windchaser's boots, Y City was not lacking in talented players of its own. Thieves chasing with Fleetfoot and archers with all agility builds were able to attain Gufei's movement speed without much trouble, provided that they had decent equipment themselves. Furthermore, some of these archers had fired off arrows with homing projectile while in pursuit. Svelte Dancer was able to ignore the damage from these arrows given her superior equipment, but Gufei had to slow down whenever he turned to deal with them, allowing his pursuers to close the gap between them. "I really got burned playing with fire this time," Gufei reflected. He was in his current predicament precisely because he had underestimated the mob's strength too much. He was sure to drown beneath this sea of commoners' attacks now. Fortunately, Svelte Dancer showed great solidarity in this crucial moment and did not abandon him to his devices. Svelte Dancer was hopping mad once she discovered that Gufei was steadily lagging behind her while their pursuers were steadily catching up to them. "Why are you so slow?" With that, she turned around and dashed over to Gufei. "Why did you come back?" "Save yourself," Gufei said. "You're such an idiot." Svelte Dancer grabbed a hold of Gufei as she took out a scroll from her dimensional pocket with her free hand. A mystical breeze suddenly emerged as the scroll bathed the ground where they stood with its white light. The instant the teleportation array completely formed, the two disappeared in a flash of light. "You caused me to waste my teleportation scroll because of your slowness, it's my last one, too." Svelte Dancer abruptly let go of Gufei and pointed her finger right at his nose after they materialized. "Where did you get that item, anyway?" Gufei asked. "It was a quest reward. There's nowhere to buy it even if you've got coins," Svelte Dancer said. "I'm sure we'll get an opportunity in the future," Gufei consoled her before asking, "Where are we, by the way?" "We can't have been sent to another city, right?" He checked their coordinates. "You wish." "There's a limit to how far the teleportation scroll can move us, so it definitely can't send us to another city or region." "We are still somewhere in Y City," Svelte Dancer said. "Why is this sort of teleportation so inconsiderate, though?" "Can't it just put us on solid ground or something?" Gufei asked as he checked their surroundings. "That's why it's called random teleportation." Svelte Dancer was annoyed. The two had very inhumanely materialized atop a tree in the middle of the woods. Gufei's midnight spirit robe was caught by a tree branch and he dangled rather precariously, as if he would fall at any moment. Svelte Dancer was just right across him. She looked to be stable, yet the branch she was caught on was visibly bending, straining from her weight. This meant that her situation was far more precarious than his, and Gufei involuntarily shut his eyes as he yelled, "Svelte! What? You're about to fall off." "Ah!" Svelte Dancer cried out shrilly as she lowered her head to look down. She was 8 meters off the ground, falling now would surely hurt. She suddenly had the urge to grab Gufei. It was unknown, though, whether she intended for Gufei to help her or to drag him down with her. "Stop fidgeting," Gufei advised. The branch had yet to break, but Svelte Dancer's hood slipped off of it due to her struggling, and she screamingly fell down. The fall was torturous, but the damage it dealt was insignificant. Svelte Dancer moaned for a while before she got up. Raising her head, she saw Gufei still dangling in the tree branch precariously. "Dislodge yourself from that branch. I'll catch you," Svelte Dancer said aloud as she stretched her two arms out. "No need for that." Gufei did not believe the thief Svelte Dancer could hold his weight. Perhaps, the warrior June's Rain would be able to. "You can't possibly dangle up there forever," Svelte Dancer admonished. Gufei did not argue with her. Very slowly, he reached inside his dimensional pocket for a banana. "The heck? How can you think of eating at a time like this?" Svelte Dancer was ruffled. "I need mana," Gufei explained, advising, "You should recover what you can, too." Peeling the banana's skin off, he slowly brought it up his mouth to eat. Gufei recovered a bit of his mana shortly after, and he promptly shook his body vigorously, loosening himself off the tree branch. Halfway down, Gufei cast Blink and landed stably on the ground. He then retrieved another piece of fruit and munched on it to fill up the rest of his mana. "We're not too far from Y City, so if any of those men chase after us, they'll be upon us pretty soon," Svelte Dancer said as she checked their coordinates. "Even if those men from before give up chasing us, others will surely come for our heads." "What's your park value right now?" Gufei asked. "I've got 23 park points." "You?" "I've got 24 park points." Gufei's ability to kill sharply declined when he ran out of mana, almost letting Svelte Dancer surpass him. "We need to clear off our park value, otherwise, we can't stay in Y City." Gufei finally realized how incompatible Y City was to park maniacs like him. "We have to go to the bounty assignment hall," Svelte Dancer said. "That's quite dangerous." "Ha ha ha," Gufei stated rather feebly. "What other solutions do we have?" Svelte Dancer asked. "Return to Yunjuan City," Gufei suggested, as it was exactly what he had done when he had accumulated a lot of park points in the past. "I can enter the bounty assignment hall since I have stealth. But what about you?" Svelte Dancer asked. "Guess I'll check and find out what's happening over there first." Gufei opened the mercenary channel and saw that the others had been sending him streams of messages. All were asking for his status. "We used a random teleportation scroll that sent us somewhere in Y City. I currently have 24 park points that I need to remove." "How are things over by the bounty assignment hall?" Gufei typed out. "Still as busy as before," they replied. "That makes things rather troublesome." Gufei sighed. Why don't you look for Dusky Cloud and his gang?" "If he utilizes the 10 Guild Alliance to protect you, I doubt anyone will continue to bother you," Brother Assist suggested. "No need for that," young Master Han interjected icily, saying, "Give me a vantage point and I'll direct you safely to the bounty assignment hall. All you have to do is fight your way in to obtain your mission." "You can do that, right? But this is a world map." Brother Assist was astonished. They naturally knew what young Master Han was trying to get at, but this map's size was incomparable to the ones they had had during the mercenary PvP tournament. Those coordinates were limited in the hundreds, yet the city map's coordinates were way larger. "That's nothing. It is just like before, as long as I know the coordinates of a few locations within the city, I can easily narrow things down appropriately." Young Master Han was not fazed by this. "But there's clearly a simpler solution to this," Brother Assist exclaimed. "It's not like we have anything better to do now, anyway," young Master Han reasoned. "Miles, why don't you decide what to do?" Brother Assist finally asked. Ultimately, this was still his decision to make. "Look for a vantage point, then," Gufei replied. Chapter 293, Super Mario. Anyone could tell with a glance where the highest point in Y City was. At the heart of the city, and near the tavern young Master's elite had just visited to drink liquor with Dusky Cloud and friends, there stood a tower way taller than Yunjuan City's clock tower. Although it clearly had a clock face as well, the system had called it the tower to differentiate it from the other in-game city's clock towers. Without a moment's delay, young Master Han set forth toward the tower as he casually called War Without Wounds to accompany him. In a city where PvP was literally its lifeblood, a lone priest walking around was a rare sight, as the non-combat job class was too easy to bully. Young Master Han might hold himself in high esteem, but he certainly had no wish to become somebody's punching bag. Ah, I wanted to do something more meaningful. War Without Wounds was extremely unwilling to become a bodyguard once more. Just give up. Do you even have the movement speed to keep up with them? Young Master Han pointed at Sword Demon and Royal God Call as he said this, and War Without Wounds wordlessly agreed. Sword Demon and Royal God Call remained by the street, prepared to lend assistance if the need arose. Brother Assist left for the bounty assignment hall. After all, no matter how high a vantage point was, young Master Han would have no way of peering through the walls. Gu Fei only began his hike back to the city from the woods once he received young Master Han's message informing him that all preparations had been made. The Amethyst Rebirth ladies were actually asking about their situation as well and if they could help them in any way. But Gu Fei and Svelte Dancer shared the same view that these ladies could hardly provide them assistance. Svelte Dancer had even suggested using the ladies to divert their potential enemies' attention through the honeypot scheme, but Gu Fei absolutely vetoed it. Y City was a paradise for manly pursuits. Most players only had eyes for blood and killing. One of the two most hated players in the city was the beauty Vast Lushness. But when did any of them show mercy toward her due to it? Svelte Dancer was also a beautiful lady, but did any of those players who had obtained her bounty mission show leniency in their attacks? Once young Master Han reached the top of the tower, he approvingly regarded the bird's eye view before him. Y City's skyline is much clearer. People can only see clouds when they look down from Yunjuan City's clock tower. That's why it's called Yunjuan One City. War Without Wounds, who was standing by his side, also took in the view before him. Almost instantly, he felt dizzy and his heart rose to his throat. War Without Wounds' entire body suddenly went weak and he slumped to the ground like jelly, his arms quickly grabbing a hold of the stone pillar next to him. Young Master Han eyed him in annoyance. War Without Wounds calmed himself and said, "I think I'm sick." "Huh? Seems like I've gained fear of heights." War Without Wounds clarified. "I know, you've had quite the journey crossing the Oolong mountain range." It was rarer to see young Master Han sympathize with another person. It was said that those that had fallen into the abyss lost a whole level when they died. War Without Wounds did not fall, yet tethering precariously between life and death for two separate segments of that stretch of road created a psychological shadow in his mind. This is a serious issue since such trauma could be brought into reality. Who knew when War Without Wounds would find himself standing high up in an office building in reality and his sight from it would cause his legs to buckle just like today. War Without Wounds tightly hugged the pillar as he slowly stepped away from the edge, returning to the center of the tower. Young Master Han paid attention to him no more as he studied the city's layout while talking to others on the mercenary channel. The coordinates for the bounty assignment hall, Gu Fei's current location, the player's heading direction from the bounty assignment hall. All these were information he needed for the operation. However, just as he was drawing up a plan, young Master Han suddenly froze and said to War Without Wounds, "We're going down." "What? There's no need for us to guide him." "Why is that?" War Without Wounds asked, puzzled. "He can get there without my help." Young Master Han started descending from the tower as he fired off a message to Gu Fei. "There's no need for me to guide you." "Oh?" Gu Fei was confused. "Svelte Dancer has stealth, so she won't have any problems getting there. As for you, you can just travel through the rooftops," young Master Han explained. "Rooftops? Oh, that's true." Gu Fei thought that this was a great idea. It was not because he would have an easier time hiding from the bounty hunters by staying on the rooftops, though. The truth of the matter was that he might be the only player capable of navigating freely across the rooftops, and this was entirely due to his possession of the blink skill. There was no way all the rooftops in the city would be conveniently connected, so there would naturally be some rooftops that were too far or too high from others for people to leap across. Only by utilizing blink would anyone be able to cross these gaps safely. As such, the bounty hunters would have no way of chasing after him using the rooftops. If they were to chase him from the streets below, Gu Fei could directly cross streets with the roofs found in the middle. How would others keep up to him if they had to take a detour around the streets and alleys? "We'll go to the bounty assignment hall to keep an eye on things for you," young Master Han said. "Got it," Gu Fei replied. He and Svelte Dancer were on their way to the city. Y City's outskirts were open and vast, but thanks to Gu Fei's experience being hunted, He knew how to play around the coordinates that refreshed every 5 minutes. However, in the city where doing bounty mission was the rage, it was quite possible that a few enthusiastic PvPers had achieved more than 100 kills to their name, which meant that they were also given the prize for completing a 100 bounty mission, Windchaser's emblem. With that item, the coordinates would refresh every minute. Fortunately, there were few bloodthirsty players even in Y City, and most of the players were doing bounty mission mainly to clear off their park value. Moreover, few people were capable of clearing off at least 100 park points like that. Given Goofy's and Svelte Dancer's movement speed, the only job classes that could compete with them were archers and thieves. There were simply not enough players possessing these job classes to chase after the two across such a wide area. Furthermore, even among these two job classes, only those who had focused their points to agility or acquired equipment boosting movement speed could trouble Goofy. Meanwhile, Svelte Dancer would likely have no issue dealing with anyone given how she currently was the top player across the entire gaming server. It was unavoidable for them to bump into others along the way as they circled and took detours, though, so when this happened, they would decisively take down the person. With their park value that was already well into the 20s, what was an additional park point? The people gathered in larger groups as they drew nearer to the city. Players continued to run out of the city, but the two were unsure whether these people were hot on their heels or simply heading out to grind. Let's split up here, Goofy told Svelte Dancer. Okay, be careful. Svelte Dancer agreed. You, too, Goofy said. Svelte Dancer quickly activated stealth and disappeared from view. Goofy darted toward the city gates while vigilantly eyeing the players leaving the city. It was possible that there would be players among them looking to capture him. As expected, the moment Goofy made it to the city gate, 3 men followed his every movement. These bounty hunters could tell that he was their target. Since they had picked up the bounty mission, they could clearly see Goofy's serial number hovering above his head. The others might be their helpers who were too lazy to pick up the bounty mission themselves. Since they could not see his serial number, they reacted much slower to Goofy's appearance. Once their friends signaled them about his appearance, almost 1/5 of the players present sprinted straight toward Goofy. That's a lot, alright, Goofy mumbled to himself. Fortunately, he had already prepared for such a situation. With his nimble movement speed, Goofy was able to enter the city before the enemies could even get into their formation. Goofy played it safe by taking down one of the players that were closer to him during this sequence. It's 27 now. Goofy tallied his park points. Once he passed the city gate, the players pointing him out increased as well. He did not hurry in the direction of the bounty assignment hall. Instead, he looked for a disused side alley and dove straight toward it. Goofy briefly inspected all the players chasing after him. Noting that he still held the upper hand when it came to movement speed, he temporarily stopped worrying about anyone catching up to him. But before he got too far ahead, other players began popping out of the other alley entrance he was running toward. These players streamed in to block Goofy's forward advance. With men on both sides, everyone was convinced that Goofy had nowhere to run. Thus, they began showing hostility toward one another. There was simply not enough to go around. Many players got the bounty mission for Goofy, but only one of them could complete it. Thinking that Goofy had no escape, everyone started warily eyeing one another. Goofy smiled brightly. Gathering all these people into this alley was precisely what he wanted to do. He waved goodbye to the people slowly creeping toward him from the front and back, lifted his finger, and cast his blink, teleporting himself on the nearby rooftop. This rooftop was so high that the average player would be unable to climb up easily. Goofy started running freely on the rooftop. The players in the alley stared at him for the longest time before returning to their senses and trying all sorts of ways to get on the rooftop as well. Some had warriors toss others up the roof, while some fighters tried doing the same thing with seismic toss. A few even tried forming a human pyramid to get up there layer by layer. Those bounty hunters with ranged job classes unleashed skills as they chased after Goofy from below the streets. Goofy had already anticipated his pursuers' actions. This first set of rooftops he teleported to was just his starting point, and Goofy was running about purely to wait for his blink's cooldown to end. By the time several players managed to make it up the roof he was on, a full minute had passed. Goofy sprinted toward the furthest end of the street, leapt off, and activated blink halfway through his jump. Crossing the 8-meter wide road, Goofy safely reached the rooftop right across. All the players were utterly dumbfounded right now. It was just as young Master Han and Goofy had predicted. None of them had a way to chase after Goofy anymore. Some players attempted to run ahead toward a rooftop further away, climbing up it in hopes of staging an ambush to Goofy there. How would they know what route Goofy intended to take, though? In the end, those players simply wasted their time climbing on that rooftop. The countless players Goofy had left in the dust helplessly watched him sprint far ahead. Running and leaping, they saw his figure shrink in the distance. At this very moment, everyone was instantly reminded of the character in the video game that they had played when they were younger, Super Mario. Chapter 294, taking advantage of the mission. The airspace of Y City had become a place where Goofy could roam freely. He did not immediately head over to the bounty assignment hall, since he was worried that the bounty hunters would figure out his intention and be able to prepare an ambush for him at the destination. Instead, he loitered on the rooftops for a good while, which had caused even Svelte Dancer to feel impatient. "What are you dawdling around for? I've already obtained myself a bounty mission." Svelte Dancer had traveled all the way to the bounty assignment hall in stealth mode. Interacting with the system to get a mission would normally cancel a thief's stealth, but Svelte Dancer fortunately had the shadow walk skill. 10 seconds were more than enough for her to grab a mission. And while it was inevitable for someone to step or bump into her given how packed the hall was, her shadow walk basically prevented any issues from cropping up because of that. Moreover, this move of hers had caused quite a few fights to erupt inside the hall. These players were unaware that a thief in stealth mode was passing by and accidentally bumped into them, so their immediate reaction was to glare daggers at the nearest players to them. Given the mentality of most players in Y City, unless the players glaring had the 10 Guild Alliance's emblem, it was almost certain that such an act would result in a few repercussions. The perpetrator, Svelte Dancer, completely ignored all this and merely exited the bounty assignment hall with her mana spent. Although Shadow Walk had run its course, her stealth state remained, so not one bounty hunter managed to pinpoint her exact location. It could be said that this sojourn of hers had been extremely easy. Goofy had even met with Sword Demon and Royal God Call in hopes of either of them lending Svelte Dancer his Windchaser's emblem. Royal God Call was most agreeable to this once he learned that the beauty Svelte Dancer was the one who wanted to use it. Arranging a location for a covert meetup, Royal God Call handed over his Windchaser's emblem to Svelte Dancer. Instead of thanking him, she asked, "Are you selling this?" Royal God Call was taken aback, but he still consciously answered, "How much are you offering for it? How much do you want for it?" Svelte Dancer asked. Royal God Call hesitated. The value of Windchaser's emblem differed from person to person. A park maniac like Goofy would consider it a treasure, and a player in Y City might find the item rather convenient given this place's PvP culture. But the average law-abiding player would certainly not think of this item as having any value. Royal God Call was considered as someone who would not consciously look for trouble, but he still felt that owning this rare equipment somewhat demonstrated his value as an expert. Just as he was about to reject her offer, Svelte Dancer actually proposed, "Will you sell it for 500 gold coins?" Royal God Call immediately reached his hand out. "Sold." All it took was 500 gold coins for Royal God Call to sell out his dignity as an expert. Equipping Windchaser's emblem, Svelte Dancer filled up her mana by consuming fruit and proceeded to search for her bounty mission target while in stealth mode. Goofy started heading toward the bounty assignment hall at his fastest speed after receiving messages from Sword Demon and the others who were currently at the establishment. Young Master Han reckoned that this was the perfect opportunity for Goofy to obtain a bounty mission since the bounty assignment hall was currently in chaos due to Svelte Dancer's shadow walk. Goofy used Blink to arrive at the establishment's entrance and darted inside to obtain a bounty mission with practiced ease. His heart skipped a beat when he saw the wanted players list while he was obtaining a mission, but he had no time to properly process this, since the players inside the hall had begun to take notice of his arrival and were now calling for their comrades to help attack him. Goofy wove through the crowd and exited the bounty assignment hall. Turning around and lifting his sword, he cast electric wall right by the hall entrance. Two players that came right out the door after Goofy were instantly trapped, convulsing in the crackling electricity and drawing everyone's attention. Goofy took advantage of this confusion to escape the premise, fleeing to a relatively quiet place, He quickly sent Svelte Dancer a message. Hey, your bounty mission isn't someone with 27 park points, right? Of course, not. Aren't you the one with 27 park points? Svelte Dancer asked back. Phew. That's good, then. Goofy sighed in relief. He had spotted a target with 26 park points as he was selecting bounty mission just then and had almost picked it up by reflex. Fortunately, he realized in time that that target would most likely be Svelte Dancer, but he started worrying whether Svelte Dancer had obtained the bounty mission for him without realizing it. That was why he had immediately asked her about this upon successfully fleeing from the bounty assignment hall. Thankfully, it seemed that women were truly more attentive to details than men. Had any of those men of young Master's elite been in her shoes, they would have most likely forgotten about this particular detail and immediately picked up the target with the highest park value. Feeling reassured on his end, Goofy made a beeline for his bounty target. A long trail of men was still chasing after him, so Goofy once more relied on the rooftop route to travel about. His target was fortunately located at the heart of the city, so he managed to make his way toward his target in relative ease. However, just as he reached his target's location, he witnessed a scene that almost left him tears. Fugitive 56,197 and his friends were walking down the street when a shrill cry was heard. The target looked behind him but saw no one there. In the end, he disappeared in a flash of white light with eyes full of confusion and shock. The man's buddies were at a total loss at what had just happened. Looking around them, they finally spotted Goofy, who was standing on a rooftop. They pointed at him in unison and lambasted. "Oi, are you the one who killed our friend? Would be great if it really were me." Goofy smiled wryly. He was too lazy to explain himself to them and merely turned to leave while sending Svelte Dancer this message. Hey, did you pick up Fugitive 56,197 with park value of 5 points? Yes, I did. Svelte Dancer was pleased with herself. I figured you would choose that person who topped the list, so I chose the second person. This way our targets won't clash. I knew it. Goofy sighed. Killing someone without a trace. Svelte Dancer was possibly the only player capable of doing so with her Shadow Walk skill. Any thief capable of assassinating a target with one strike would surely reveal himself or herself to the victim when his or her stealth got forcefully cancelled. There would have been no way for that man to die without knowing his assailant if the attacker had not been Svelte Dancer. Goofy could only lament that he did not put much thought into things when he picked up this bounty mission. He had assumed that Svelte Dancer would pick the first target on the wanted players list, so he had picked this particular target to avoid clashing with her. That was when Svelte Dancer realized something. Hang on. Did you pick this target, too? There was no way Goofy would know such detail if he did not choose this target as well. What else? Goofy replied glumly, saying, once you pick your next bounty mission, tell me its serial number. TSK. Svelte Dancer expressed her disapproval. Having completed this bounty mission, she promptly activated the teleportation skill of Windchaser's emblem and used Shadow Walk. Once more, she was able to easily pick up a bounty mission. What's your serial number? Goofy asked. 115,493, Svelte Dancer reported over. Got it. Goofy replied as he once more made his way to the bounty assignment hall. His utilization of the rooftops to travel about NY City made the locals feel mystified over his existence and wonder about his identity. Goofy rushed inside the bounty assignment hall, picked up another bounty mission, and dashed off to accomplish it. Goofy eventually managed to complete 2 bounty missions, lowering his park value to 17 points. Meanwhile, Svelte Dancer completed 3 bounty missions, and she was now down to 11 park points. The other 5 men of Young Master's Elite thought at first that the 2 would require their assistance, yet they saw the 2 handling everything quite expertly. The 5 men who had originally positioned themselves vigilantly by the entrance to the bounty assignment hall eventually became lax, squatting by the opposite wall all lined up. If any of these men had bowls lying in front of them, others would probably mistake them for people begging for alms. Only young Master Han, who was standing upright, seemed to be taking this matter seriously. After watching Goofy and Svelte Dancer do bounty mission for quite a few times, he nudged the others with his foot. Get up, things are about to get messy. Eh? The rest looked at him questioningly. Just as young Master Han had expected, The entrance to the bounty assignment hall suddenly stirred as people began arriving. It was as if the place had become the new gathering point for these players. From their stance, it was apparent that they were waiting for someone, and that someone was most likely Goofy or Svelte Dancer. These people had gotten the bounty mission for Goofy and Svelte Dancer. Seeing the two spark value rapidly decrease, they immediately realized that Goofy and Svelte Dancer were doing bounty mission as well. Goofy thought that using Blink was enough to confuse these bounty hunters, yet he forgot to consider what these men would think upon seeing their park value rapidly decrease. There was just no way to quickly lower one's park value besides doing bounty mission. Tell Svelte Dancer not to head back to the bounty assignment hall once she completes her current mission. And the same goes for you. Young Master Han sent Goofy this message. Why? Goofy asked. The bounty hunters after you guys have gathered here upon noticing how low you two's park value has become, young Master Han explained. Goofy finally understood what young Master Han meant and he quickly relayed this information to Svelte Dancer, who was quick-witted enough to figure it out as well. The whole city was swarming with their pursuers just moments ago, but it suddenly became devoid of such people at the moment. The trail of people that they could not seem to lose no matter how hard they tried had all disappeared. What now? Svelte Dancer asked Goofy. Let's just take a break in a tavern for now. Goofy suggested. Great idea. Following this conversation, the two met up and randomly chose a tavern to have a few drinks. While the two were happily imbibing their drinks, many players were forlornly waiting for them at the bounty assignment hall. These players were actually competitors, so none of them thought well of one another. This was the first time these people realized just how many people had picked up the same bounty mission now that all of them were gathered together by the entrance to the bounty assignment hall. The first thing they would ask before starting to chat one another up was, 124,785 or 125,987? Serial number 124,785 was Goofy, while serial number 125,987 was Svelte Dancer. After asking around, these people learned that there was actually an equal division of bounty hunters between the two bounty targets. Some simply targeted the person on top of the wanted players list, while others picked up the second person on it after thinking that many people would likely choose the top fugitive. Everyone looked at one another, uncertain of what to do. Sword Demon, Brother Assist, Royal God Call, and War Without Wounds were currently at a loss as well, finally asking young Master Han, "There's no way we can take care of all these men, can we?" "What are you talking about? Just watch." Young Master Han folded his arms and leaned on the wall with the others following suit. Shortly after, several players began to leave. Seeing many people competing for the two targets, those players that were not confident of besting the others for the kill decided to give up on this bounty mission. More than half of the gathered players left the area, and plenty of those that remained were sitting on the fence. At this moment, those who had been closely monitoring Goofy and Svelte Dancer's coordinates noticed that the two had not changed location for a really long time. Remembering those that had left earlier, these men's expression quickly changed. They leaned in and whispered to one another. Before long, more began to sneak out of the hall. Young Master Han laughed derisively as he faced the others and lectured, "See that? It is as I said. Nothing can be accomplished without unity." With that, he sent Goofy this message, "Alright, you two can come back now." Chapter 295, Quick Mission Completion. Goofy was relaxing in a system-operated tavern when he received young Master Han's message. He immediately informed Svelte Dancer of this and the two proceeded to activate their Windchaser's emblem, disappearing from the tavern in a flash of white light. Those players who had noticed that the two's coordinates had not changed for the longest time hurried over to the tavern to catch either of them. Unfortunately, they did not manage to reach the place in time. When the coordinates refreshed again, these bounty hunters saw that the two's position had finally changed. The experienced players among them quickly deduced, "Damn, they have Windchaser's emblem as well." A few bounty hunters were still in the bounty assignment hall when Svelte Dancer and Goofy teleported over, but their number was no longer a threat for the two fighting experts. Swiftly handing in their respective missions and picking up another, Goofy's park value was now down to 12 points, while Svelte Dancer was down to 6 points. Plenty of these players were no longer eager to chase after the two, since they felt that they were just wasting their time with them. Some of them were even hoping for the two to quickly clear off their park value so that they could pick up new bounty mission. Goofy and Svelte Dancer left to hunt their respective targets, while young Master Han and the rest stayed right outside the bounty assignment hall. There shouldn't be any more issues, right? Having squatted for so long, Brother Assist finally stood up and was now massaging his numb thighs. Young Master Han gave a vague affirmation. He then stared straight ahead in a way that suggested that he was waiting for someone or something. What else could there be? The others asked young Master Han this upon seeing the far-off look on his face. Young Master Han inclined his head to a certain direction. Looking in the indicated direction, they saw a dusky cloud with a horde of men rushing over. Without a word, these new arrivals charged inside the bounty assignment hall. Plenty of curse words were soon heard echoing from within the hall. In no time at all, several players emerged from the hall with their hands on their heads and eyes filled with fear. Dusky Cloud and his compatriots came out of the bounty assignment hall after. His steely gaze swept through the area, and when Dusky Cloud spotted several players dazedly standing by the side, he immediately pointed at them. "What are you guys doing here?" Mission. These players stuttered and then froze up, clearly unsure of how they had offended such a large horde of men. "Mission, my ass. No bounty mission for you lot." Scram. Dusky Cloud chased away all these players. Only then did his gaze shift to the 5 men squatting by a wall and made his way over to them. "How's everything? Is Miles Bro alright?" Dusky Cloud asked with worry apparent in his voice. "He's fine." Brother Assist answered for everyone, saying, "His park value will be cleared off soon. Why didn't you inform us about this and let us intervene?" Dusky Cloud asked. The 10 Guild Alliance naturally had men that were clearing off their park value through the bounty mission as well. In fact, some of them were among those that were chasing after Goofy. Since the 10 Guild Alliance had over 4,000 men, a few of them were bound to not know of who Goofy was. It was only when a 10 Guild Alliance member who knew of Goofy's appearance had come face to face with him that the Super Mario who had taken the city by storm was found out to actually be 1,000 miles drunk. Hurrying to inform the 10 Guild Alliance of the matter, Dusky Cloud hastily rallied his force to aid Goofy. The 10 Guild Alliance was basically Y City's tyrant organization. Dusky Cloud's men quickly gained control of the bounty assignment hall and they turned away any players, telling them to return at a later time. When would that later time be? It would of course be once Goofy cleared off all his park value. Goofy and Svelte Dancer do not know of this at first. When Goofy disposed of his latest target and teleported himself to the bounty assignment hall, he was taken aback by its strangely empty hallways. Exiting the hall to chase after his target, he saw a pack of players standing right outside. Goofy's heart leapt. Why did his fellow mercenaries not inform him of this bunch of players blocking the way out? Did they think everything was over and ran off to do their things, instead? As he was about to charge forward and fight the players, someone from the pack suddenly shouted, "Miles Bro is back." Everyone turned to look. Dusky Cloud emerged from this crowd and approached Goofy, grasping his hand warmly. "Miles Bro, it's been tough on you." "Ah, not really," Goofy replied, feeling surprised. "These motherfuckers of Y City just love clearing off their park value. Honestly, I don't even see the point in doing so. Just look at me, I've never bothered to clear off my park value at all." Dusky Cloud declared. "That's true," Goofy casually agreed. Understanding that these men had come here with good intentions, he expressed gratitude. He then said, "I'm about to finish clearing off my park value. No need to busy yourselves with this matter, it's fine for you guys leave." "How many is left?" Dusky Cloud asked. "Just 7 park points." The men behind answered for him. It seemed that quite a handful of them had gotten Goofy as their bounty mission. "That's 2 more missions. We'll help you keep watch here," Dusky Cloud said. "No need to go through such trouble," Goofy refused. "We are brothers here, what's there to be courteous about?" Dusky Cloud was adamant. Goofy could only accept his offer. He was about to send Svelte Dancer a message to prevent any misunderstanding when the door behind him opened and he heard her exclaim, "Shit, I'm surrounded." By the time Goofy looked backward, Svelte Dancer had already activated stealth. He hurriedly shouted, "Don't do anything. They're on our side." Silence pervaded as everyone looked blankly at the empty space. Svelte Dancer's red figure slowly faded into view. She was holding a dagger which was actually inches away from Dusky Cloud's neck. It seemed that she was about to lop his head off. "Friends of yours?" Svelte Dancer blinked. "Yeah." Gu Fei went over, lowered her dagger, and pulled her away. "Carry on with your bounty mission." Dusky Cloud could still feel the whip of air around his neck. Had it not been for Gu Fei's timely shout, Dusky Cloud's neck might have been ripped open by Svelte Dancer's dagger. As a thief, his heart was beset with bewilderment by what he had just experienced. To be able to move so quickly despite being in stealth mode. "Just who is this person? How may I address this heroine?" Dusky Cloud respectfully asked as he went forward. "Svelte Dancer." Svelte Dancer introduced herself. "Oh." Everyone was in awe. This bunch of ruffians had naturally heard of this #1 pay-to-win gamer, who also currently held the title of being the top player of Parallel World. "Okay, time to go." Gu Fei waved to the group as he dragged Svelte Dancer off. Svelte Dancer was down to her final park point, allowing her to clear her park value with this last mission. Gu Fei's 7 park points were also quickly resolved with 2 more missions, finally settling the storm that had thrown the entire city into a tizzy. Gu Fei thanked Dusky Cloud once more, and the 10 Guild Alliance's men dispersed after. Svelte Dancer also left to look for the Amethyst Rebirth ladies. Gu Fei watched these 2 parties walk away and hefted the hem of his robe, heading back inside the bounty assignment hall. "What are you doing?" the 5 men of Young Master's Elite asked, stunned. They had almost grown roots for staying by the wall this whole time. "Bounty mission, of course." Gu Fei answered. "Didn't you just clear off all your park points?" they asked. Gu Fei turned his head over to look at them. The 5 realized the foolishness of their question. Bounty mission was Gu Fei's main reason for playing the game, after all. TSK. They each raised their middle fingers to Gu Fei before leaving as well. At the same time, Traversing 4C's negotiation by the prison also ended. They had gathered everyone in case of a fight breaking out, yet not a drop of blood had been shed all this while. After Ruthless Sword paid the fee to the prison guard, what he got in return was not an item but a person. To be precise, what he got was a dirty-faced, smelly NPC with disheveled hair. The NPC was wearing a coarse prisoner's outfit and his hands and legs were still bound with chains. The quest's story became clearer with this. Apparently, this NPC was originally someone that held an important position from a certain city. The NPC was later found guilty of corruption charges and fled from that city. Unfortunately, it got captured in Y City and Traversing 4Cs was tasked of escorting this corrupted official back to its city to stand for trial. Of course, only the Traversing 4Cs members were privy to this information. The mercenaries had simply been standing by the prison entrance this whole time, feeling wholly unsatisfied for being unable to do anything more constructive. Oathless Sword was rather rueful as well. Had he known that this part of the quest would be accomplished easily, he would have just gotten the NPC by himself and called everyone to continue on the road. In the end, he had wasted time setting up formation and getting people ready for a non-existent fight. Furthermore, many players had already run off to God knew where once they had learned that the expedition would not resume today. Without any choice left, he could only stick to their earlier decision of continuing the journey tomorrow. As all the mercenary groups dispersed, Oathless Sword realized that he had no idea on how to handle the NPC they had gotten. He could not possibly bring it along as they grinded levels. What would happen when he logged off? Then, Oathless Sword nearly fainted when he directly asked the NPC. Grinding levels was not a problem, but if anything untoward happened to the NPC, causing its death, this guild quest would be considered as failed. Beyond that, they would have to bring him back to the prison for temporary holding when they logged off. Since the prison was run by the system, it would nationally charge a fee for this service, which was exactly the cost Oathless Sword had just paid to take the NPC out of the prison. This meant that Oathless Sword had not only wasted time but also money. What was worse was that he would have to pay money once more to retrieve this man tomorrow before they could resume their journey to the next city. In his anger, Oathless Sword stuffed the NPC back into prison before leaving in a huff with his band of brothers. Gu Fei was still happily doing bounty mission. The park value of Y City's players was substantial, with many of them having at least 5 park points. If not for this, Svelte Dancer and Goofy would have no way of clearing off their high park value so quickly. The higher the park value of a bounty target was, the more lucrative the reward was. Goofy's experience points and coin purse increased as his enjoyment reached an all-time high with the many fights he got himself into. There was nothing more he could ask for from the game at this point. When Sword Demon and the rest sent him a message asking if he would like to join them in some new quests they had acquired, Goofy rejected them outright. Even the quests in Yunjuan City were new to Goofy. When it came down to it, bounty mission was still what he wanted to do the most. Goofy slew the bounty target before him with this thought in mind. Quickly patting his Windchaser's emblem, Goofy teleported himself to the bounty assignment hall. Goofy currently had a piece of cloth covering his face like any other Y-City player, so not one of the people in the bounty assignment hall realized that he was the bounty target that they had been chasing after just a while ago. Finally managing to squeeze his way to the mission window, Goofy sighed deeply in relief. This was one area of Y-City's bounty assignment hall that he felt dissatisfaction about. It was always crowded with people. Goofy handed over his completed mission and was about to obtain another when he heard a dinging sound. This was exactly the same sound he had heard before when he received a special reward upon mission completion. Chapter 296, Windchaser's Blessing. After the ding sound, the description of the reward and related achievement was displayed. System notification: player 1000 miles drunk has cleared a total of 400 park points through bounty mission. This was a momentous achievement that only Goofy could achieve based on the system's following statement: the system did not include the park points that were used to clear off park value for this achievement. No one would do bounty mission if they did not have park value to clear, and this was still true even for someone in Y-City. Would anyone besides Goofy, who treated doing bounty mission as a form of enjoyment, be able to accumulate 400 park points of bounty mission? Finally, the system issued the reward, Windchaser's Blessing. Goofy believed that a lot of equipment was hidden within the bounty mission system, and all of which would have the Windchaser name to it. While the reward's name was rather conventional, he would still have to check the equipment's description to find out its function. Windchaser's Blessing was a necklace. It had HP plus 60 and max HP plus 35% traits. Windchaser's Blessing's traits were almost a copy of Windchaser's Boots movement plus 60 and movement speed plus 35% traits, fully demonstrating how similar the series of Windchaser equipment from one another was. Moreover, the relation between HP and max HP had run by the same logic as the relation between movement speed and movement. The inherent growth of a mage's HP was only at the lowly rate of 0.85. Beginning with only 85 horsepower, every point added to endurance only increased it by 0.85. Currently, Goofy was at level 40, including the 1 point that was automatically added to his endurance each time he leveled up. His maximum HP was still 119. When he wore Eddie's emblem, the additional 6 points to endurance pushed his HP to 124. The decimal point of stats was often not shown in Parallel World, and theory crafters, data analysts, and mathematicians were still needed to further research about its application in real-time combat. Wearing the Windchaser's Blessing, Goofy's maximum HP would rise to 248, essentially doubling his original HP. Even an idiot could tell that Windchaser's Blessing was wondrous top-grade equipment just like Windchaser's boots. Sadly, Goofy did not see this accessory as such. As a player that had never experienced dropping a level due to dying, Goofy did not attach much importance to his lack of HP. Instead, it was his low mana that had him feeling pain. It would be better if this item could increase my mana. Instead, Goofy thought to himself as he inspected the necklace in his hand. As for HP, since nothing and no one had really been able to injure Goofy so far, why would he care about having more or less HP? With such a thought in mind, he merely proceeded to pick up a new bounty mission and made his way at the bounty assignment hall. Nevertheless, the new equipment still had to be tested. Goofy wore the Windchaser's Blessing, but he did not feel any differently despite the HP increase. How useless, Goofy shook his head as he sprinted toward his new bounty target. Nothing else happened when Goofy logged off later that night. Goofy went online a little earlier than usual the next day because of the lure of having bounty mission targets with park value of 4 or 5 points, and because of wanting to check on Vast Lushness's situation. Pulling up his friends list as soon as he got online, he sent Fireball, Sakura and the others he saw online a message each. Nothing further happened to them, and they were relatively safe. Fireball even did his best to invite Goofy over to appreciate together with them the beauty of the 3 sultry ladies that they had supposedly found. Goofy rejected him as politely as he could. With nothing else to do, Goofy naturally passed his time doing more bounty mission. After a few bounties and when it was almost 7 p.m., he received a message from young Master Han to gather with everybody by the prison entrance. No tense atmosphere pervaded the air today unlike yesterday. Everyone was listlessly staring at Oathless Sword, who was standing on a stair step of the prison entrance. He originally wanted to say a few words but quickly changed his mind upon seeing all their expressions. Turning around to interact with the NPC to retrieve the prisoner from yesterday, he instantly won the appreciation of everyone present. Since they were about to continue the expedition, youthful reflection and the various mercenary group leaders ensured that all those involved were properly accounted before 7 p.m. Weiser was truly a city of discord. Plenty of them ran into trouble despite having only stayed in it for 2 days. Most of these were the result of conflicts over grinding spots, and it was mainly the mercenaries that got into trouble. This was mainly due to Traversing 4C's members not being able to set their characters to respawn in any other cities while doing the guild quest. One death would cause them to fail the quest and automatically send them back to Yunjuan City. Therefore, Oathless Sword and the other bigwigs of the guild repeatedly reminded the members about the importance of keeping a low profile and even told them to forget about being part of the #1 guild in Yunjuan City. By the looks of things, their members listened, and they were able to achieve the desired result. Many of the mercenaries fought with the locals and suffered quite a few losses, yet Traversing 4Cs did not lose even one member to unnecessary skirmishes, something Oathless Sword and company were secretly delighted about. It seemed that Yunjuan City's players suffered similar fates at the hands of Y City's ruffians while grinding levels. These players swapped stories of their experiences being bullied as they felt nostalgia over the idyllic life that they had in Yunjuan City. They all shared the same sentiment. They could not wait another minute to depart from this place. People love to compare with one another, and this lot of players began to compare who had the worst loss from this sojourn in Y City. In the end, Sakurazakamuni's Great Hunting Mercenary Group won this. The 40-man mercenary group lost 22 men in a span of 2 days, taking the lead in terms of actual count and percentage of losses. You guys sure are intense. Just how many fights did you get yourselves into? Someone exclaimed. Most of Yunjuan City's players only had minor squabbles when they were snatching grinding spots, losing 1 or 2 men at most, and many immediately retreated once they saw their HP gauge turning red. It was already difficult to lose 5 or 6 people in just 2 days, since a mercenary group would have to get into 5 or 6 different squabbles first. Using this logic, Sakurazakamuni's group had been into 22 or so fights to lose that staggering number of men. Sakurazakamuni was not only reprehensible but also good at acting humble, placidly saying, "Not really. We merely had a minor misunderstanding with the 10 Guild Alliance here." All were visibly moved by this, but they quickly began to jeer at Sakurazakamuni's shameless bragging. The 10 Guild Alliance was well known even to those players not residing in Y City for being the largest organization in Parallel World. Although it was made up of 10 different guilds, the 10 Guild Alliance was pretty much a large guild with over 4,000 members. Even Traversing 4Cs, the #1 guild in Yunjuan City with 750 members, was considered small when compared to the 10 Guild Alliance. For the small 40-man mercenary group led by Sakurazakamuni to survive from this minor misunderstanding and walk out of Y City almost freely was nothing short of unbelievable. TSK. It's fine if you don't believe me. Sakurazakamuni did not wish to force his point, waving his hand dismissively and refusing to explain further. The players continued to laugh even as they dispersed, ending the topic there and then. Taking the main road leading out of the city, The expedition slowly made its way toward a small village. Gu Fei excitedly said to his fellow mercenaries, "This is Yaguang village, it's where my chain quest ended. So this is the village that half the residents are werewolves?" Brother Assist quickly pulled out his booklet to jot down this information. "That's right." Gu Fei dragged Brother Assist to the side of the expedition, intending to point out to him the werewolves among the passing NPCs. When Gu Fei first went to Yaguang village for his chain quest, the human villagers and the werewolf villagers treated him differently. Gu Fei still remembered the human forms that the few werewolves he knew assumed. However, now that he was pointing each villager out, he could not seem to spot even one werewolf villager that he was familiar with. Brother Assist had his booklet and quill at the ready to record things, yet Gu Fei oddly remained unforthcoming. As Brother Assist looked at him questioningly, someone from behind them suddenly said, "Hey!" This caused the two of them to jump up a meter or two. "Ziu!" Gu Fei greeted after recovering himself. June's Rain excited said to Gu Fei, "We're here at this village again." "Yeah." Gu Fei answered with fake enthusiasm, his gaze roaming around. "Did you still remember the secret of this village?" June's Rain asked secretively. "What?" Gu Fei was stumped. June's Rain cupped her hand to his ear and whispered, "Some of them were werewolves." Gu Fei did not know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. He once more fell for the mental trap that June's Rain had unwittingly set. In some ways, June's Rain was equally as scary as young Master Han. The latter was due to his deep insight while the former was for her simple-mindedness, a level of thought, or lack thereof, that no one would understand without first-hand experience. Gu Fei felt he was still rather close to young Master Han's level of intellect, yet he was really far away when it came to June's Rain. "What? Did you forget about it?" June's Rain asked, using her intellect to evaluate Gu Fei when she saw him speechless for a long time. "Of course, I remember." "Can't you see I'm trying to locate the werewolf villagers right now?" Gu Fei asked. "You should look for me if you're searching for werewolves." June's Rain patted her chest proudly. "Eh?" Gu Fei did not understand what she was getting at. June's Rain pulled out the quest booklet from her dimensional pocket and flipped it over to the page containing the data about the werewolf villagers in Y City's Yaguang village. "Look here. Coordinates 30, 30. Villager Finn, werewolf." After reciting the coordinates, she began to head to a different direction that the expedition was moving toward with Gu Fei and Brother Assist. June's Rain reached the coordinates in just a few steps, but after walking around twice, she could still not find the werewolf villager from the said area. "Ah, what's going on?" June's Rain asked, her eyes sparkled with innocence. "Let's look for another one." Gu Fei took pity on her and pointed to another werewolf villager she had noted down. Coordinates 30, 30. Villager Semi, werewolf. June's Rain muttered as she and the other two started walking toward the stated location. Once more, they arrived at a location without one NPC around. "Ah!" June's Rain did not even wait for Gu Fei to say a word and just proceeded to the next werewolf villager she had noted down. There was at least a NPC in the indicated location this time, yet it was not the werewolf villager that they were looking for. June's Rain talked to the NPC for 5 times, yet this villager insisted that its name was later and not the Kundi she had listed on her booklet. Could I have remembered wrongly? June's Rain scratched her head. She would usually make mistakes, so she did not have much confidence to begin with. "I don't think that's the case," Gu Fei said. "Then, what's going on?" "That. It seems all the werewolves are gone," Gu Fei answered with uncertainty. "All the werewolves are gone?" Brother Assist reiterated, albeit in a questioning tone. He had quietly been following the two all this while. Chapter 297, Werewolf, Werewolf, where are you? Where were the werewolves? It was daytime in Parallel World right now. The werewolf villagers should be standing by the side of the road like all the human villagers to contribute toward the atmosphere of the game. When Gu Fei could not point out any werewolf villagers to Brother Assist, he just thought that perhaps those he remembered were not on duty, but now that even June's Rain was having the same issue, he knew that something was amiss. They searched for 3 other villagers consecutively but did not find even one of them. Gu Fei searched his memory deeper, and he came to the realization that the number of villagers strolling about the village today seemed to be fewer than when he was here before. "This way." Gu Fei led the way, and June's Rain and Brother Assist followed him closely. They arrived in front of a certain house. June's Rain looked down and glanced at her booklet before announcing, "Werewolf Wally." Goofy nodded his head. Although he did not know the NPC's name, he was certain that this was the home of that burly werewolf who had rewarded him his moonlit nightfalls. "He's clearly the leader of the werewolves in this village," Goofy thought to himself as he pushed the door open with his hand. "Ah, you've got to knock on the door first. Some NPCs get mad if you're discourteous." "What will we do if they don't give us a quest?" June's Rain got flustered, but she quickly calmed down once she realized that no one was inside the house. "Show me your little booklet," Goofy said to June's Rain. Relying on June's Rain's booklet, the three broke into three separate homes where werewolf villagers were supposed to reside in, yet not one of them could be found. Brother Assist surveyed the whole room as he brushed his fingertip over the tabletop. "There's no dust. This means that they have left not too long ago." "You're really smart." June's Rain praised Brother Assist, suggesting, "Let's go ask the village chief." "Hey, they are about to head off already. Do we really need to inquire about the werewolves' whereabouts at this time?" Brother Assist asked. "Do you think the werewolves' disappearance has a connection with traversing 4C's guild quest?" Goofy asked. "What sort of connection could there be?" Brother Assist asked back before muttering to himself, "It couldn't possibly be an attack staged by the werewolves, right? That would just be too ridiculous. Werewolves are level 70 monsters. How many werewolves are living in this village, anyway?" June's Rain started counting the 4-page worth of names in her booklet. "No need to count," Goofy stopped her, saying, "Let's just go to the village chief and ask him." Locating the elderly village chief of Yagwang village, Goofy was shocked to learn that this NPC still recognized him. The village chief even called him Chosen Hero when they conversed. Goofy originally thought that since his chain quest had been completed, the NPCs in Yagwang village would treat him just like any other players afterward. He had never expected the special treatment he received to persist even after the quest was completed. However, it was only Goofy who found this to be strange. A person like June's Rain who would often do quests was very used to such a situation. The NPCs were sure to treat a player differently after completing a quest that could not be repeated. If a player was treated the same like before, then his or her quest had most likely failed, which meant that the player would have to try again. "Chief Edwin," Goofy courteously greeted the NPC. He then selected a few names from the booklet and asked him where those villagers were. "Oh, they've left the village to hunt since the weather is so good today," Chief Edwin informed them. "Hunt? Where to?" Goofy pressed on. "The forest, north of the village, or perhaps up the mountain?" "I am not really sure," Chief Edwin answered. "Do they often go hunting like this?" Goofy continued to probe. Chief Edwin shook his head. "See, this is unusual," Goofy said to Brother Assist. "The north of the village happens to be in the same direction that our expedition is heading toward." Brother Assist's countenance quickly changed. "We should quickly catch up to them. This is a serious matter. These are level 70 monsters. Send them a message, then," Goofy suggested as he started running off. The trio left the village chief's abode and followed the main road leading north. Soon, they caught up to the rest of the troops that had halted their forward advance. Most players in the expedition were clueless about what was happening and were busy discussing with one another the reason why they had stopped moving forward. The three core members of Traversing 4Cs, Oathless Sword, Youthful Reflection, and Gale Force, immediately went up to the three upon their arrival and addressed Brother Assist. "Brother Assist, you said that there are werewolves waiting ahead. Just what do you mean by that?" Brother Assist relayed all the information he had gathered so far to young Master Han, who then passed it on to Youthful Reflection. Now that this particular information had been said aloud, everyone started discussing the matter animatedly. "You should ask him." Brother Assist pushed Goofy to the front. Youthful Reflection openly expressed his distaste toward this. He really disliked dealing with Goofy. Gale Force, who was beside him, showed uncertainty on how he should treat Goofy. Oathless Sword was the one who spoke in the end. "Miles bro, the werewolves you speak of. What's going on with that?" "A while back, I came to Yagwang village to do a quest," Goofy began narrating. "In that village, half of the residents are werewolves masquerading as humans. They live in harmony with the unsuspecting humans and do not wish to reveal their identity as werewolves. Today, I discovered that not one of these werewolves is in that village. We inquired around and discovered that they haven't left for too long. The village chief said that they had left to hunt today, something that they have never done before. The place that these werewolves headed to hunt is north of the village. North. But that's where we are heading to. Oathless Sword exchanged glances with the two men beside him. So what you're saying is that these werewolves may have gone there to attack us. Youthful Reflection was the military advisor of traversing 4 seas, so he still had to talk in the end. That's my guess. Gufei could tell that Youthful Reflection was not really fond of him, and he shared this sentiment with him. He despised Youthful Reflection's pettiness. You've only lost a match in the mercenary PvP tournament. Plenty of people have lost to us, yet you're the only one being a sore loser about it. Youthful Reflection scrutinized Yagwang village, which was behind them. This village isn't particularly large. Half of the villagers would be no more than 100 or so werewolves. Although they are level 70 monsters, we have 1,000-strong army on our side. It shouldn't be so dangerous if we assign 10 men to one werewolf, right? Depending on numerical superiority may work for other monsters, but it won't for these werewolves, Gufei said. Oh? Youthful Reflection eyed him contemptuously. Werewolves are really fast when it comes to their speed, and each of them possesses innate regeneration, Gufei supplied. He did not need to explain further, as all those present were skilled gamers and quickly understood what the 2 points meant. The werewolves having fast speed meant that these players' attacks might not connect, and the werewolves having innate regeneration meant that these players' attacks would be useless if the damage was not high enough or applied with a consistent frequency. The werewolves were indeed a serious problem to consider. Unfortunately, Youthful Reflection had just treated Gufei curtly and brusquely, and it would just be plain awkward to suddenly do a 180 in his attitude toward Gufei. In the end, Oathless Sword once more stepped forward to mediate in the conversation. Miles bro, what do you suggest we do, then? My suggestion? I have none. I'm just informing you that there are werewolves ahead. I'll leave it up to you to deal with them, Gufei replied. Oathless Sword attempted to laugh this off as he said, Miles bro, please don't be bothered by the attitude of this comrade of mine. He is like that with everyone. Gufei did not know whether to laugh or cry at that. I'm not bothered by it, and I really don't have any suggestions for you. I just coincidentally found out about the werewolves' disappearance in the village and thought that it might be related to your guild quest. I made it a point to inform you so that you guys can better prepare for any possible fight ahead. That's it? Oathless Sword was taken aback. What else is there? Gufei shrugged his shoulders. Rest up, then, Miles bro. We'll discuss this matter in detail first, Oathless Sword said. Go on, then. Gufei waved them off, as if he were the boss here instead of Oathless Sword. And so, all the players from Yunjuan City took this moment to rest up. The possibility of 100 or so werewolves waiting for them ahead spread through the troops. With the werewolves' quick speed and inherent regeneration, even if they were to fight them tooth and nail, the losses they would incur would surely be disastrous. Therefore, they must devise an appropriate battle plan. The Traversing 4 Seas Corps members and all the mercenary group leaders headed to a clearing beside the forest to conduct a proper strategy meeting. Besides the werewolves issue, a particular rumor was being discussed by the troops. Did you know that Thousand Miles Drunk originated from Y City? He even did quests in Yagwang village a long time ago. That explains why he's so ruthless when slaying players. He is from Y City, after all. I heard that he was being hunted down in Y City yesterday. He must have offended some people in Y City and could no longer continue living in it, so he had no choice but to flee to another city. That's most probably the case. The meeting went on for 15 minutes, yet they could still not come up with a viable solution. Some players who did not have much stakes in this quest could no longer bear it and called out in unison, Bosses, why don't we return to the city and discuss this matter there, instead? Let's just resume our expedition tomorrow once we've come up with a plan. A certain mercenary leader received inspiration from this. Actually, there's a way to perhaps resolve this. Let's return to the city, and set off once those werewolves the mage mentioned before are back in the village. Will that work? Why don't you just ask us to circle around this path, instead? Who knows where the werewolves are hiding? Can we really avoid them by circling around them? Exactly. Where are these werewolves, anyway? Are we perhaps getting paranoid over nothing? Just because those werewolves happen to head off for a hunt doesn't necessarily mean that they are out to get us. All turned to look at Oathless Sword when they said this. Oathless Sword hesitated before addressing young Master Han, mercenary leader Han. This information about the werewolves came from your group. Don't you think you should perhaps go the extra mile and scout out ahead to confirm the werewolves' intention as well as their location within the forest? Young Master Han's expression twitched visibly. Scouting out the werewolves' location was fine, but trying to find out the werewolves' intention. They were a bunch of monsters, for goodness sake. There had been no precedent suggesting that players could interact with this sort of NPCs without resorting to violence. But since Oathless Sword already said so, young Master Han did not back off. Simply nodding his head, he said, "Deposit, please." Chapter 298, Wolf Sir. Everyone who heard young Master Han's words was stunned, with even a few exclaiming, "What? Nothing." "It's nothing." Oathless Sword hurriedly said, "You guys are free to do your personal businesses for now. Our friends from Young Master's Elite will scout the path ahead for us." Young Master Han merely smiled as the other mercenary group leaders stood up and left. When they were well out of earshot, Oathless Sword quickly said to young Master Han, "Please keep all our transactions to private chat, bro." "Sorry." My tongue slipped. Young Master Han was all smiles. All the mercenary groups signed different contracts with Traversing 4 Seas. In the case of Young Master's Elite, young Master Han had demanded a series of unfair conditions from Traversing 4 Seas. Oathless Sword had only grudgingly agreed to all those after considering that young Master's Elite was a group of only 6 men. But if these conditions were to be exposed to the other mercenary groups, Traversing 4 Seas would certainly suffer immense losses, with each of them demanding the same conditions. This was why Oathless Sword almost had a heart attack when young Master Han mentioned the word deposit in front of everyone. Putting aside just how much this deposit was, many of the mercenary groups did not even have the condition of receiving additional payment for every extra contribution they performed. Thankfully, none of those mercenary group leaders paid close attention to young Master Han's slip of the tongue, so Oathless Sword was able to send them away with a few words. Now that it was just him and young Master Han, the two quickly settled the payment issue. By the time they left the clearing in the forest, the Traversing 4 Seas players and the mercenaries were already wandering about as if they were here on vacation. Only Gufei and the rest reckoned that something was up when young Master Han did not exit the forest together with the other mercenary leaders, so they waited by the forest outskirt. When young Master Han finally emerged, they immediately bombarded him with questions. Young Master Han had the air of a boss when he beckoned the 5 toward him. They had no wish to humor him, so they all averted their gazes in unison, pretending not to know him. "Come on over." Young Master Han lost his patience. As the 5 men listlessly drew near him, young Master Han imperiously told them, "You 4 are not needed." He then singled out Gufei amid the 4's cursing, "You go and look for the werewolves' location." "Where would that be?" Gufei asked, dumbfounded. "Didn't you say that they are somewhere north of the village?" "Head over there and take a look, otherwise, we'll simply carry on with the expedition," young Master Han bossily ordered. Figuring out what this was all about, they eyed young Master Han disdainfully. "Did you waste all that time coming up with this scrappy errand? It's a simple task that can earn us a bit more gold coins. I'd love to see you guys do better," young Master Han scoffed. "Why must it be me, though?" Gufei asked. "We don't know how a werewolf looks like." "Ha ha ha ha." Young Master Han replied in elation. Gufei irately spat on the ground before turning around to go. "Hey, I wanna go with you." Brother Assist ran after him, briefly explaining, "Information. What will you do if anything goes wrong and we need to retreat?" Gufei hesitated. "It's fine. You can negotiate with the werewolves alone. I'll stay and observe from a distance." Brother Assist already had everything planned out. Gufei saw no point in persuading him otherwise, so the two of them merely proceeded northward. Oathless Sword, who was closely watching the 6 men's action after assigning the task to them, felt great dissatisfaction when only 2 men left to do the task. This was because he had paid out a deposit for the service of all 6 men. Whether they were the best of the best or the worst of the worst out there, headcount would always be an important factor when determining the payment for services rendered. It was just unfair for him to pay for the services of all 6 men when only 2 of them would actually be working. Oathless Sword could not bear it any longer and approached young Master Han to call him out for it. "Leader Han, are you busy?" Young Master Han was in the midst of opening a bottle of liquor, so the popping sound that echoed about made Oathless Sword jump a little. Young Master Han said, "Don't worry. That task you've assigned us will surely be completed." "I know." Both Miles and Brother Assist seemed to have left already. Oathless Sword emphasized on the word both when he said this. "Yes. I sent the 2 of them to scout the road ahead, while the 4 of us will search for clues over by the left and right side of this forest." "Everyone, let's get moving." Young Master Han motioned for the others to stand up. The way the 3 men were sitting on the ground showed that they did not have plans to go anywhere anytime soon, but with young Master Han's prompting, they quickly stood up. Royal God Call even cleared his throat to say, "Guild Leader Ruthless, please be at ease. I guarantee that they won't dare to slack off with me around." Royal God Call projected himself as someone loyal to traversing 4 seas. Yet anyone with eyes could tell where his allegiance truly lay. "Guild Leader Ruthless, we are about to cut through this forest and make our way around, allowing us to cover a radius of several hundred meters with this one sweep. I'm sure you won't have any issues with that, right?" Young Master Han asked. Before Oathless Sword could reply, he quickly added, "I'll make sure to inform you at once if we discover anything unusual. Naturally, we won't charge you anything extra for this." "Alright, we will go now." With that, the 4 men left Oathless Sword blankly standing there and entered the forest to begin their search. He opened his mouth to speak, yet he did not manage to find a chance to do so. He really wanted to know, if the werewolves were that far away from this road that they were advancing to, then how were those monsters still connected to them? Ignoring the fact that young Master Han brought the other 3 inside the forest to slack off, Gu Fei and Brother Assist were actually responsibly handling the task right now. The 2 were constantly on the lookout for any movement around them as they continued down the main road. Gu Fei even sought Brother Assist's advice. "Do you think that those werewolves I previously helped in my chain quest would know me now that they have turned into monsters?" "That is really hard to say." Brother Assist paused, saying, "Technically, they should be able to recognize you if they are still considered as quest NPCs. The problem is that they are currently involved in a different quest, so it's quite uncertain if they'll be able to recognize you right now." There were 2 types of NPCs in Parallel World. One type was the monster NPC. They were what players usually killed to level in grinding maps. Monster NPCs were essentially bots that only knew how to fight and did not possess the intelligence to talk with or remember the players. The other type was the quest NPC. They were what the game company bragged about as possessing high level of AI. Quest NPCs were able to identify players' speech, expression, actions, etc., which allowed them to interact with the players just like real humans. However, there was a limit to their level of interaction. For instance, if a player randomly asked an NPC he or she met on the street, "What's your motherfucking surname?" the NPC would be able to reply to the question provided that it had a mother-related quest. If it was just a regular NPC without a family background coded into his or her backstory, it would completely ignore the player's question. Overall, they were really nothing more than pre-programmed bots. This was precisely why Brother Assist could not tell if the werewolves would be able to recognize Gu Fei now that they were part of a different quest. "You can't tell either, huh?" Gu Fei sighed. If even Brother Assist could not answer this, there was probably no other player out there that could. As he was thinking of this, the system notification for when a friend of his came online sounded. Gu Fei would usually ignore this, but since he was doing nothing at the moment, he casually pulled up his friends list, receiving quite the welcome surprise. Speaking of the devil himself, Gu Fei hurriedly sent this particular friend a message. "Hi. What?" was the other person's cautious reply. "It's been a long time." Gu Fei said. "What did you get yourself into this time?" This person's skepticism did not recede in the least. "About that, I want to ask you something." Gufei openly broached the topic. If I encountered a bunch of NPCs for a certain quest in the past, would they still recognize me now that I am involved in a different quest? Naturally, our quest NPCs fully simulate human interaction, which basically makes them similar to living, breathing human beings. Meaning, they are fully capable of remembering past interactions provided they actually occurred. For them to forget about past events just because they are now involved in a different quest, that's just sloppy programming. Is that so? What about those NPCs that I've killed before? Since they are alive once more, will they recognize me or not? Gufei thought back to Yeguang Village's Adrian. He recalled seeing NPC Adrian by his mansion when he walked past the church before. Of course, those won't recognize you. Although the current NPC shares a name with a past NPC and bears the same task, that NPC is actually an entirely different person. It's like a job. If a person resigns from his or her position, a new one will replace him or her to perform the same type of work. So that's how it works. Alright, I got it now, Gufei declared. What did you want to ask me about? You already answered it, thanks a lot. With that, Gufei closed the conversation window. Was his question complex enough to warrant my answer? Fleeting Smile asked himself, have I accidentally leaked important information to him again? Fleeting Smile was indeed thinking too much. He did not actually provide Gufei a hint but reassured the latter that his assumption was correct. Instead, Gufei along with Brother Assist already thought that that would be the case in Parallel World. They merely lacked first-hand information to prove their belief. With a game employee's confirmation, why would Gufei still have a sliver of doubt? Gufei was now confident that the bunch of werewolves would recognize him. And since he was their great benefactor, those werewolves would not have enmity with him. Thinking up to this, Gufei braced himself and yelled, Wally, where are you? Come out. Are you insane? Brother Assist exploded from shock. Relax. Gufei patted Brother Assist. Following his shout, a figure appeared from behind an old oak tree far ahead. The wolf seer definitely lived up to its reputation. Chapter 299, The Weakness of Werewolves. The wolf seer, a werewolf possessed, really gave it a keen sense of hearing as it heard Gufei's call from over 100 meters away. Given how loud it could be as well, the ferocious-looking werewolf's guttural growl caused several figures to appear in the horizon. Standing on hind legs, these werewolves bounded toward Brother Assist and Gufei. Pale-faced, Brother Assist trembled as he asked, Are you sure it's safe? Gufei also felt slightly intimidated by the werewolves' behavior despite Fleeting Smile's indubitable information and his certainty of the Yeguang Village's werewolves recognizing him. This was because the werewolves recognizing him did not guarantee that they would not attack him. Correlation did not mean causation, after all. For instance, Gufei knew Silver Moon, yet he would not hesitate to slay the latter from where he stood. Although these werewolves owed him a favor, it was hard to say if they would honor it. This thought caused Gufei to involuntarily retreat, which made Brother Assist's already pale face turn ghastly. You're not thinking of fleeing, are you? While Gufei could still escape given his current distance from the werewolves, Brother Assist would certainly be unable to do so. Gufei did not wish to be labeled as a disloyal person, so he could only say, no way. We'll die together if we have to. Brother Assist did not expect for Gufei to easily speak about dying, and he felt disappointed because of this. The werewolves' movement speed was definitely far beyond what the players could currently achieve, and this allowed them to surround the two men in the blink of an eye. Gufei kept his gaze trained on the hulking werewolf, but he felt unsure inside if this was truly the werewolf headsman Wally. Gufei only knew of Wally's human form, and now that the latter was in his werewolf form, any of these similar-looking werewolves gathered around them could be him. Gufei tightened his grip on the sword as the hulking werewolf stepped closer to him. He noticed how the werewolf shrank and changed with its every step, so by the time it reached Gufei's front, the werewolf had already transformed into his human form. The human NPC before Gufei was stout and had the exact same look of the werewolf headsman Wally. Gufei sighed in relief. Wally would not revert in his human form if these werewolves were hostile toward him in Brother Assist. This was something he could tell despite these entities being NPCs. Indeed, Wally looked at Gufei with no hostility in his eyes and even greeted him quite fondly, "Hero. What are you guys doing here?" Gufei asked. While the question was something friends would usually ask one another when they met, it was actually an important command that could generate quests when asked toward NPCs. According to unofficial statistics, two questions were considered important when interacting with NPCs. The first one was "What are you doing?" And the second one, which was a follow-up question, was "How can I help you?" NPCs would usually begin to narrate the quest plot when they heard the first question. In Gufei's case, once the surrounding werewolves heard his question, they started transforming to their human forms and told their current predicament with sadness-filled eyes. Indeed, these werewolves were in this location to ambush traversing forces that was escorting a prisoner, but they had all been coerced into doing this. Their only wish was to peacefully coexist with the humans, but that had somehow become their Achilles heel. Someone had once more learned of their secret and used it to blackmail them into stopping the escort team. If they did not do so, the blackmailer threatened to expose their secret to the public. Although they were not the violent sort, they were still werewolves through and naturally possessed the exceptional combat skills of their kind. Unfortunately, their secret had made it easy for others to exploit them. Gufei sighed and then asked the second question that would trigger a quest: "How can I help you?" Wally was dumbfounded. "Everything can be easily resolved if we know our blackmailer's identity." Gufei was curious and asked, "Have you guys not seen the person? All we received is this letter." Wally handed over a note to Gufei. Taking it in his hand, Gufei scanned through the document. It said, "Eliminate Todd. If you don't, you and your fellow tribesmen will be in trouble." The blackmailer had even enclosed a small picture of a group of humans surrounding a werewolf in the event that the underlying message in his letter was not clear enough. The surrounding werewolves showed utter fear at the sight of the picture from the note. Gufei was honestly uninterested with the image, but he still asked, "Who is Todd?" Brother Assist beside him hurriedly replied, "That's the prisoner traversing forces got out of Y City's prison. They are trying to silence him." Gufei gasped. Others might not know about Todd's background story of being a corrupt official, but the men of Young Master's elite were well aware of this since they had Royal God Call, who was a member of Traversing Forces. When Oathless Sword retrieved Todd from the city prison, every Traversing Forces member received the guild quest prompt, and once Royal God Call got this, he immediately divulged it to the other 5 men on their mercenary channel. Gufei waved the note in the air as he said to Wally, "Don't worry about this matter, I'll help you solve this." Wally felt extremely happy upon hearing this. "That's wonderful." Wally and the other werewolves had had misgivings regarding Gufei before, but his success with the chain quest had earned him their confidence. A thought flashed through Gufei's mind: if he got Moonlit Nightfalls for completing that quest before, would resolving this matter grant him a similarly amazing reward? Probably not, Brother Assist analyzed, explaining, "It's not the same quest. After all, even if the NPCs involved are the same, the reward itself won't be." "Oh, come to think of it, my quest log doesn't even show anything," Gufei shared. "Is this a hidden quest?" Brother Assist exclaimed. "If a hidden quest doesn't even show that it has been undertaken, then how will any player realize that he or she has triggered it?" Gufei retorted. "That's precisely why it's called a hidden quest." Brother Assist put emphasis on the word hidden. "Are you for real?" The werewolves had already been placated by Gufei's acceptance of the quest and had dissolved their earlier encirclement of it too. However, before they left, the werewolves told Gufei that they would keep a close eye on Todd's movement. If they saw the latter leave their territory, they would not hesitate to strike. This meant that Gufei and Brother Assist's plan to trick the werewolves into not attacking their expedition as it left via a different route would not work. The system isn't that dumb, after all. Brother Assist chuckled bitterly. As Gufei nodded his head in agreement, Brother Assist continued speaking, "But then again, that should be how quests are supposed to work. It will be boring if all we have to do is kill everything that stands in our way." The game officials often brag about their so-called multiple style of playing the game aspect. Yup. I suspect that crossing those crevasses in the Oolong mountain range may have alternate solutions. For example, we may have needed to search for an NPC that could help us build bridges over there. It's just that this guild quest does not have a step-by-step prompt like the normal solo quests people are used to, which resulted in everyone disregarding such a possibility, Brother Assist hypothesized. "So how should we solve this?" Gufei asked, waving the note in front of Brother Assist. Let's first head back and talk this over with the others. Brother Assist suggested. The two men returned to where most of the expedition had temporarily stopped. Close to 1,000 players roamed about leisurely, yet Oathless Sword and the other core members of Traversing Four Seas remained on edge about their guild quest. They waited by the road for Gufei and Brother Assist's return, and when they spotted the two, they immediately went to them. Gufei passed the note over to Oathless Sword as he relayed the werewolf's story to the latter. This was what every mercenary was duty-bound to do. When mercenaries were tasked to act on behalf of their employers, it was their responsibility to report everything that they had found out, down to the smallest detail, to their employers. This was not something unique to games, either. This was a matter of the player's personal conduct, and a person like Gufei took this responsibility very seriously. So that's how it is. Oathless Sword took the note and read it over and over again before telling Gufei, "Thanks for your hard work, Miles bro. Rest up for now, we'll discuss this matter first to see how we can solve this." "Sure." Gufei quietly backed off. Oathless Sword, Youthful Reflection, and Gale Force found a secluded area and began a round of intense discussion. But instead of trying to come up with ways to resolve the matter, the three's discussion revolved around the reliability of Gufei's information. Gufei might be a responsible mercenary, but others only suspected this to be a false act. Specifically, Youthful Reflection had an extremely prejudiced opinion about Gufei, and this only clouded his judgment over anything relating to him. As such, right now, he strongly suspected Gufei of deceit. "All he got is this note? I could write 100 of this if you need," Youthful Reflection said contemptuously. "This doesn't seem to be his handwriting, though." Gale Force opined. "How do you know?" The two men eyed him questioningly. This. Well. Gale Force was at a loss for words. Youthful Reflection did not bother pursuing the matter with him and merely continued voicing out his suspicion. "Let's forget about that. Anyway, 1,000 Miles Drunk claims to know those werewolves and says that that's why they did not make things difficult for him and even let him in on their issue, which happens to be the only solution to our current predicament. Everyone, think, this is a region under Y City's jurisdiction. Logically speaking, we players from Yunjuan City won't have any opportunities to get to know the werewolves living in here. So why would the system grant us a quest and have this kind of solution as part of it on the off chance that someone among us actually knows those werewolves? If no one here happened to be in that unique position, or in other words, we were not traveling in 1,000 Miles Drunk's company, how in the world would we complete this guild quest? Then, what sort of reasoning would justify that? That makes sense." Oathless Sword nodded his head in agreement. "So what's his reason for cooking up all this?" Gale Force took the note and studied it repeatedly. "I have no idea. Who knows how 1,000 Miles Drunk's mind works? I have this gut feeling that this is a trap that guy has set for us," Youthful Reflection said. "Trap? Against us? No way, right? Do we have enmity with one another?" Oathless Sword was shocked. Although they had once intended to settle the score with 1,000 Mile Drunk and his mercenary group, those had been nothing but empty words. They had not even taken one step towards such an end, so young Master's Elite should not have anyone harboring strong resentment toward Traversing Four Seas. "Anyway, I just don't think we can trust him so easily," Youthful Reflection adamantly said. "So what do we do? Didn't he say that the werewolves are just ahead? Let's go over there with a few of our men and try to talk with those werewolves," Youthful Reflection answered. Chapter 300, The Search for the Blackmailer. The three core players of Traversing Four Seas were naturally far more concerned about their guild quest than anyone else, and once their intense discussion ended, Youthful Reflection promptly picked a few members with fast movement speed to join him in scouting the area ahead. All of them truly had amazingly fast movement speed, leaving like the wind and returning just as quickly. Except, a team of 4 men left, yet only a pair returned. Youthful Reflection's complexion was deathly pale and Oathless Sword hurriedly asked, "What happened?" "We did see the werewolves," Youthful Reflection said, "but they only trust 1,000 Miles Drunk." Oathless Sword was dumbfounded. "So he's telling the truth. How is this even possible? Does this mean that we were doomed to fail the guild quest if we did not happen to hire him?" Youthful Reflection maintained his silence. Was that not the basis of his argument when he questioned the legitimacy of Gu Fei's claim before? Where are Ziasi and Xiaoha? Oathless Sword asked, after not spotting the other two. They're dead, Youthful Reflection answered. What happened? Oathless Sword was shocked. The werewolves attacked us the moment they saw us, killing the two right off the bat. It's fortunate that I managed to tell them that we were there to help, so they stopped their attacks at the last minute and we avoided suffering the same fate. Youthful Reflection felt really embarrassed and sighed. The player beside him shuddered as he was saying all this, his gaze somewhat catatonic. Clearly, the werewolves' display of ferociousness had traumatized the two. I was thinking, Youthful Reflection started speaking again after staying silent for quite some time. It is still quite improbable for a non-guild member to hold such an important role in completing our quest. I think it's just coincidental that Thousand Miles Drunk stumbled on this role due to his history with those werewolves, allowing him to be connected to our current guild quest. Surely, there's a way for us to gain the trust of those werewolves as well. All we have to do is identify the method. Why do we have to do all those unnecessary things when we can just follow Thousand Miles Drunk's instruction about locating the blackmailer and killing the person? Even if we won the werewolves' trust, the goal would still be the same, anyway, Galeforce reasoned. I'm just worried that the quest Miles has obtained may have perhaps missed out essential details. Youthful Reflection replied, or he may have even withheld important information just so he can extort more gold coins from us. That is highly possible. Oathless Sword's fists shook with emotion as he recalled the devious smile permanently affixed on the face of Young Master's elite mercenary group's leader. The man was forever trying to extort more money from him at every opportunity ever since they commissioned his mercenary group for this mission. The fact that the werewolves only trust Thousand Miles Drunk must not be revealed, Oathless Sword quickly instructed. He was sure that if young Master Han learned of this fact, the man would use it to extort every coin he had. So what do we do now? Galeforce asked. Everyone was at a loss. Although they decided to uncover the person manipulating the strings behind the scene, they just did not know where to begin their search, making them feel somewhat frustrated. Looks like it'll be difficult to continue our journey today, Youthful Reflection sighed. Given that they had no leads regarding this particular quest, they could only resort to the most basic method of interacting with the NPCs until they exhausted all possible conversation options. Thus, traversing 4 seas headed back to Yeguang village. Forming 3 to 5 player teams, each team surrounded every NPC villager and engaged them in a conversation. The mercenaries nationally did not wish to just wait on one place. A few well-intentioned mercenaries even lent traversing 4 seas a hand, while the rest wandered about in search of monsters that they could fight to stave off boredom. Almost instantly, all the players from Yunjuan City were doing something inside or outside Yeguang village. Meanwhile, Oathless Sword, Galeforce, and Youthful Reflection went back to Yi City's Hall of Mercenaries. They figured that since Gu Fei had come into contact with Yeguang village's werewolves due to a quest he had done in the past, loads of Y City players must have done a similar quest. Rather than allowing Gu Fei to give young Master Han a chance to extort more money from them, it was better to seek out the help of a mercenary group in Y City. Unfortunately, the quest Gu Fei had completed was too high level. Just the main NPC for the quest was a level 70 werewolf. It could be said that the quest was not something that the current quality of players could trigger, let alone accomplish. In fact, there was not one player in Y City who was aware that half of Yeguang village's residents were werewolves. Not one mercenary group contacted Oathless Sword regarding it after he had submitted his recruitment request in the Hall of Mercenaries. Furthermore, the players inquiring about the quest in Yeguang village were getting nowhere. The story these villagers had regarding the werewolves was actually a summary of Gu Fei's actions during his quest. A villager got killed by a werewolf, and a passing hero discovered the truth of the matter, foiling the plan of that werewolf. Some players even directly revealed to these villagers about the existence of werewolves in their midst, yet they did not receive any sort of response from the NPCs. This was a game, after all, and everything in it was bounded by its encoding and AI. If the quest taker, Gu Fei, had been the one to reveal that particular information, his words would have most likely elicited a strong reaction from the NPC villagers. As for these players who had merely obtained the information from Gu Fei, The NPCs only treated their words as nothing but gibberish. The half of the villagers are actually werewolves. Line might trigger a further storyline if Gufei were to say it himself, but other players who said it would just be spouting nonsense. Otherwise, none of young Master's elite men participated in all the activities happening around them. The 5 of them were currently seated in Yaguang Village's tavern, watching everything with indifferent eyes. Brother Assist had gone around the village and just returned to the tavern. He looked at the 5 men and shook his head. This method won't do. No one seems to be getting any sort of information at all. Perhaps it is not an issue of the method used but of the person involved. Since the quest is triggered by Miles, maybe only he can extract information from those NPCs. Sword Demon deduced. Shall I give it a shot, then? Gufei fielded this question to the group. It's fine if you do, but don't be in a hurry to act on it if you do get a lead, young Master Han ordered. Ugh, you're so evil. Gufei shook his head disapprovingly before heading outside. He naturally knew what young Master Han was getting at. If this matter was truly something only Gufei could resolve, Oathless Sword would most likely be coughing up blood. As soon as he stepped outside the tavern, Gufei ran toward Chief Edwin's abode. With how this village worked, he was certain that its residents would just send him over to Chief Edwin eventually. In any case, Chief Edwin was also the first NPC he could think of if he wanted to get information about his quest. Unfortunately, such an important NPC was not someone the villagers would only reveal to Gufei. Those players who had continuously inquired around the village were eventually redirected by the NPCs to Chief Edwin, who was living in a 3-story house by the edge of the woods. Just outside the village chief's house, plenty of players were packed like canned sardines, and with everyone clamoring for a chance to speak with him, it was as if Chief Edwin were a superstar and his place were a venue for a fan meeting. Is there a need for this? Gufei was baffled. Everyone could have just chosen a representative to talk with the village chief. Why was there a need for all of them to talk to Chief Edwin? This way of thinking was bred by Gufei's lack of motivation. Just like young Master's elite, many mercenary groups and guilds use the point system to distribute equipment and coins to their members. Group missions and quests like this were the best opportunities for the members to obtain contribution points, so they would naturally not want to miss such a wondrous chance and would even willingly compete with others for it. Gufei was already blocked from entering the premise, and if that was not enough, 2 Traversing 4Cs players who spotted Gufei in the crowd rushed over. Apologies, Brother Miles. Our guild leader has instructed us to tell you that you don't need to busy yourself with this matter anymore given how hard you've worked thus far. Oh. This was Gufei's only response before he backed off. He was quite happy deep down, though, as young Master Han's intention to earn a quick buck off of Traversing 4Cs had already been seen through by them that Oathless Sword himself was doing his best to prevent Gufei from helping. Just Traversing 4Cs words were not enough to stop Gufei from helping, though. Still, the underlying meaning behind their statement was rather clear. Since we did not invite you this time, you could lend us a hand, but you would not get paid for it. Gufei did not really care about that, and he simply wanted to do something. However, his desire to help flagged at the sight of the many people surrounding Chief Edwin's house, as it meant that it would take ages before he could talk to the NPC. In the end, he turned to leave. The other 5 men felt shocked when they saw him return to the tavern. So soon? What did you manage to find out? Nothing, Gufei answered, explaining. Traversing 4Cs said that they don't need my help. Everyone turned to look at young Master Han. Just how much money did you make off of them that they actually sent men to guard the place, as if they were afraid of getting robbed, and gave up such an easy solution for hard labor? Young Master Han muttered, it's not how much money, but how many times, instead. I hardly think I'm to blame for that, though, the truth is we are just too outstanding. Young Master Han's narcissistic statement this time finally included the others, so instead of contradicting him, they actually nodded their heads in agreement. That sounds about right. We really are just too damn amazing. The more Oathless Sword doesn't want us to extort from him, the more I want to make a huge killing off of him. Young Master Han rubbed his hands together. Extort every penny off of him. Royal Godcall did not hesitate to betray his guild leader now that he had spied an opportunity for him to earn a tidy sum off of the latter. Miles, who do you think is the NPC pulling the strings? Young Master Han asked. How would I know? Gufei asked back. Who was the final boss of your chain quest back then? Young Master Han rephrased his question. Mr. Adrian. Gufei said as shock overcame him. Could it be the same NPC again? Why would that be the case? Everyone asked. Today, I specifically inquired about this. I've previously killed Mr. Adrian for my quest, so the current Mr. Adrian, although he bears the same name and look of the man before, is actually a brand new NPC. But, Gufei recalled Fleeting Smile's words, even a newly spawned NPC will still bear the same task as before, replacing the previous one to continue the same job. What does that mean? The others did not understand what he meant. The previous Mr. Adrian is a villain, so the newly spawned Mr. Adrian will naturally not walk the straight and narrow path. He's most likely the only NPC around who would blackmail the werewolves like this, young Master Han hypothesized. Gufei nodded his head. That's what I think, too. Let's go find him. Royal God Call excitedly said. The 6 men stood up as Brother Assist walked abreast with Gufei. Where did you hear that from? That might be a little difficult to answer, Gufei replied as he looked at Fleeting Smile's name on his friends list. You would be giving me a huge help once more if this quest really did fall onto Mr. Adrian's lap again.